Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, that's much better now. Hope you enjoyed your dinner yesterday. I saw some pictures of it. Nothing to worry about. Who was participating in the morning run? 2 of you. That's great. That's great. Was it 10 Ks or more? Less. Okay. One thing before we start today and starting to look back to yesterday's program, we had some questions about Mr. Sergei Pupaka's participations. He wasn't here because on Tuesday evening we received a message that due to health reasons he can't be in Tallinn. We're wishing him a quick recovery, but the main thing is that his points and ideas were shared through Minister Saar and Mr. Tamm's speeches. So yesterday we were mainly focusing on the role of the coach and their place in society. We talked about how the sport and the sport industry has changed and raised the questions, do the coaches and their methods should change too? Our speakers shared their thoughts, ideas and researches, and like one of them, Raul Rebane, said, this conference held during Estonian Presidency can be a start of the process which helps people to understand the opportunities that exist for implementing coaches' potential within society. That was yesterday. Today we will focus on competence of coach and how it is achieved. Like yesterday, we will also today travel to the future as we ask the questions what skills coaches of the future need. I think this is the moment when we mention again the need of change for the coaches, or do we? Let's see. Yesterday our male panel discussion got a question about women and coaching, and we didn't get a proper answer. So we continue to look the answer in one of the parallel sessions today, which is called Women and Coaching. Like yesterday, we have 2 sessions and coffee break between them. So let's start with the session 3, which is called Competence of the Coach. Different approaches and forms are employed in different countries for training coaches. Formal education, non-formal education, and as well as informal learning on the job. But how to combine formal, non-formal, and informal learning in developing coaches? This is the topic of our first presentation. Please welcome Jose Ferreira Curado, Chairman of the European Coaching Council.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I hope you are in good shape after a good night. Anyway, we need to be role models, so let's start on time and use it properly. I want to thank the invitation, and on behalf of the European Coaching Council, I want to tell you that we consider this opportunity made possible by the President of the Estonian a historic opportunity for coaches. So let's see what's going on after that, but we really believe that this is a great opportunity. In my document, I have much more over there than I'm going to talk about. I'm going just to point the main ideas over there, and there are some references for those who may be more interested in knowing more. I let the document to be used by people, and you can go further after my speech. I'm going to try to respect my 20 minutes. Okay, we know from practical experience, from the empirical research, that we have the old formal education, the first one, then it started to be present the non-formal education, and more new the problems related with informal education. But I think that there is much more than that, below the level of water, that we need to talk about, because coaching education is a complex process, and it is still very new, very young. The research in coaching education started more or less 40 years ago in a more serious way, so we still have a long way to do. Let's start with the concept of lifelong learning. It's, as you can see, it started to be approached in the 80s. It's too young. And there is a lot of reasons to talk and to justify the need of lifelong learning. But I'm going to tell you just one. Any person who wants to keep teaching cannot stop learning. And for me, this is the most important reason to talk about lifelong learning. Another issue that needs to be approached. Coaching education needs to be placed in the field of adults as coaches as adult learners. Coaches are no longer kids in the school. They are people with experience, and we need to treat them as adult learners. Coaching education is about changing beliefs and behaviors. And it is not just because. There is enough research that tells us that coaches, they tend to reproduce their past experiences without reflection. They just repeat and repeat and repeat their experiences as players, athletes, and what they have seen their coaches doing. But to make that possible, the change, we need to work very hard to have good coach developers. This is why the International Council for Coaching Excellence published this small booklet just to start to have a strong conversation about the need of coach developers. I don't know here, but I know what's going in my country and in some others where I've been working in coaching education. Our most important problem is exactly this, to have good coach developers. No more traditional pedagogy in coaching education. Andragogy is the pedagogy of adult learners. We need to make a shift here also. Coaching expertise. It started to be studied 35 years ago. We don't know yet a lot about coaching expertise, the way coaches think, the way different coaches, using different strategies, they go and get good results. And there is a paradox in our field of activity. Lots of coaching education programs delivered by national and international federations, by the higher education system, private companies, but what do we really know about coaching expertise? It's a paradox. The coaching education of the future needs to be based on developing each individual coach's own philosophy. You can read a little more about it in the booklet that yesterday Sergio showed also to you. An emerging concept, it makes part of the ICCE vision to fight and keep moving towards the recognition of coaching as a profession, a regulated profession. And also the need of having coaches, the voice of the coaches, to be listened. Lots of institutions make decisions that affect coaches' lives. Do those institutions know exactly what coaches need? They know their opinion? No, until now, it's a new field of battle, if you want. And finally, we need to influence the political decision makers. This is why I've said before that this is a great opportunity made possible by the Estonian Presidency to start a new approach in relation with trying to influence the political decision makers. Okay, I'm sure that everybody knows what is formal learning. It's the oldest one. It has a relation with schools, basically, and teachers. The non-formal learning also is related with coach educators, with teachers, but may not lead to a formal certification. And the youngest one, the informal learning, is becoming more and more important. It's difficult to approach it in a proper way, but we need to work a lot on that. And a new problem, the recognition of prior learning. It's a new field of concerns for everybody working in coaching education. Unmediated learning, this is what anyone does at home the way he wants, with no help, reading books, DVDs, internet, so and so. The mediated learning means to have the help of another person. Another concept, experiential learning, it has to do with activity, reflection, application of our experience, and the idea of transformation our experience. I'm going to turn back a little later to that. New concept, lifelong learning. Non-formal, formal, informal, we need to put a single composition of those three parts. So we need a system of education that is going to be flexible and the possibility of being adapted to the individual's needs. For the 21st century, lifelong learning. Reasons. Lots of information, fast technological changes, the global interaction. I've heard yesterday, if I'm not wrong, we have here how many countries, different countries, 29, someone said yesterday. So the shifts that are happening in the industry, and all these require new skills. You can put it in this way. Maybe it helps to understand the relations between them, examples of each one of the types of learning situations. Or this way, we can see over there a little bit of complexity. But during the panel, I'm going to talk about the need of simplify the complexity. It's one of our competencies to make the things to become simple and easy. I'm not going to stop here. This is the general characteristics of adult learners. The characteristics lead to principles, but I'm going to stop here for a while and to say something about how coaches learn better. In a coaching education program, coaches' experience needs to be recognized. We need to make them to reflect about their experiences, as I said before. Coaches go to a seminar or to a workshop for one reason. They feel a problem and they want to solve them. This is why I go to the clinics and seminars. I have a problem, I feel hit with the players I coach, and I'm going to try to find a solution. And I hope that someone tells me something relevant. Encourage them to take responsibility by their learning. Positive climate, back again to the need of experimentation, putting your hands in solving the problems. Once again, engage them in practice and make sure that what they are doing is relevant for the context where they work. Once again, take them owners of their learning. Only success generates success. Only money makes more money. So the big success comes step by step from the small successes. And the success generates self-confidence. That's the very old. Let's stop here for a short while, a short moment. The way they like to learn is taken into account and recognized that this may be incidental. I've learned a lot incidentally during my practices. Watching the players' reactions, my proposal, their response, it has been always a very important source of learning for me. Idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic is only related to own feelings and experiences, emotions, so and so. Another way of putting the things, different percentages, formal, informal, seminars, workshops, a little complexity here, once again. How coaches learn? Different sources. Formal certification, interaction with peers, athletes, other experts, informal mentoring, formal mentoring, apprenticeship with an experienced coach, their own athletic experience, it counts, supervised practice, clinic, seminar, conference, what we are doing now exactly, observation of other coaches, guided reflection, trial and error on the job, probably the oldest way of learning something, trying and making mistakes, back, trying again. Homework, communities of practices, and maybe others. But nothing of this is really important if a coach is not a self-reflective person. And there are ways, there are strategies, there are tools to help coaches to be a self-reflective person. If not, too much work, but without that, you don't go that far. Another way of looking at the... I don't like that much this approach. This approach don't comes from the sport field. This comes from the services and industry. Anyway, it is interesting to think on it. It helps us to have an idea about the need of having a mix of different sources for becoming a good coach, to take things from different sources. Let's put them that way, but please don't take this as a rigid. This is not a solution. Rigid, I'm correct? Rigid, the word exists in English, rigid, okay? But it helps us to have an idea of the importance of each different source of learning. What does the research tell us? Christine Nash stated, coach learning tends to be idiosyncratic. Few coaches follow a systematic development route that is standardized for coaches within different sports and stages of development. What does that mean? This means that every coach has his own way of becoming a better coach. And the coaching education program needs to pay attention to this. For me, it's clear, and I hope also for you. All this can be transformed in law. Apologies for that. I'm bringing an example of my country, but we are going to be very well succeeded with our experience, and I'm going to leave you just as an example. This is the law that is related with the continuing education. In Portugal, coaches, they are obliged to do continuing education. Probably people says it's violent, but violence is to have our kids in the hands of non-prepared people, with people without good qualifications. So, if they want to be coaches, they have to go. And this is related with the concept of lifelong learning. It is up to the sports coach, depending on his or her qualifications and the stages of development of the athletes, athlete-centered, do you remember? To choose the education actions that must suit his or her needs. This way, we are telling coaches, take responsibility by your education. It is idiosyncratic, as I showed before, and be reflective people. Watch the institution delivering programs of coaching education and see what is better for you, and go there. Traditionally, the federations, national and international, they want always to have the coaches under their protection. If you want, I can explain later what I mean by that. Just a little bit of advantages and advantages of formal education. Large number of coaches will learn the same information and/or process at the same time. For instance, a federation that wants to develop a technical program or a tactical program, it's a good way to put everybody in the same way. But it needs to be properly designed. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, I put it over there. People learning through formal training programs come up to speed faster. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's on the literature. The last one, but the most important. Variety of methods in a coaching education program. Everybody knows that each of one learns in a different way, and we have different preferences according to the need of our learning. There is people that learn a lot. We have auditive persons. We have more people that learn more doing. It depends. And we have to respect, back again, to the adult learning principles. Let me stay for a while making some observations about the costs of education. In my country, any time that it comes to coaching education, immediately arises the problem of the costs. We need to convince the political decision makers that putting money in coaching education is not a cost. It's an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment. But I used to challenge people to think in a different way. If you think that education is a cost, please try to think about the costs of non-qualified people. Try to think about the costs of ignorance in coaching, injuries, premature abandon of sport because of less prepared coaches, sexual harassment, so and so. So if you think it's a cost, try to change your opinion. It's not a cost, it's an investment. For some people, learning new things may be intimidating. Maybe the informal learning situation may be not so intimidating. The experts may be more open to share their experiences. And once again, the question of the resistance to the new things. Turning back to my first slide. Maybe some of you over there are thinking, what is this guy talking about? Maybe he's a little crazy. And you may be sure I am a little crazy. To be a coach for 31 years means that you need to be a little crazy. But if you think this is too much, okay. But the future of coaching education needs to deal with all those things. And let me finish with a brilliant brain of a very small country like Estonia and Portugal. Uruguay, Eduardo Galeano has been a philosopher, a writer. Google him and you are going to discover very interesting things. And Galeano once said, the utopia is there on the horizon. I take 2 steps forward and it moves away 2 steps. I run 10 steps and the horizon runs 10 steps. As much as I walk, I will never reach there. So, why? For this reason. So I cannot stop walking. As I said at the beginning, you have some references over there for the people who has more curiosity about it. And please, don't forget, keep walking. Thank you. I have respected absolutely 20 minutes, okay? I don't need the applause, thank you for it, but please give a strong applause to the people working down there, the translators. This is really a very difficult job to be there translating in real, in the time. I had an experience in the past, so I know how difficult it is to be there. Please give them an applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. So, any questions to Jose after his very interesting presentation? The microphones are ready. I do. Jose, you were talking about formal, non-formal, and informal education, and you showed us some numbers, 70, 20, 10%. You said you don't totally agree with it, but from your experience, how are the numbers changed during the, let's say, last decade?
The non-formal and informal, clearly they have become more and more important. It's difficult to translate that into numbers. I can tell you, I have at my university, I do a small research exactly on coaching expertise. And every year we make interviews with high-performance coaches. And very interesting, all of them recognize the importance of formal education. I didn't say that. The formal education is under some criticism, but all the research tells us that the formal education keeps its importance. But they, all those coaches, top-level coaches from my country, they all say that they prefer, after the formal learning situation, to have different experience, to contact with other coaches, to go to seminars with top-level coaches, so and so. So I don't have nothing against. I have against if we look at it as a rule, a rigid rule, but I took it as a reference point to tell us that we need to have different experience of learning. Not, the most important, it's not if it is 20% or 30%. Which is important is that it works for me and probably for you in a small difference, but 70, 20, 10, okay. But if it is 30 or 40, no problem. But the important message is that every one of you needs to go to different experiences of learning.
Okay, so this brings us back to the self-reflection, like you said.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
We will talk about the future later in the panel, but shortly, what do you see, from your opinion, will happen during the next 10 years?
I hope that big changes. I hope that the results and the documents approved in this conference may have some influence on the political decision makers. I hope that new European projects related with coaching education come up, and then let's work together to make the things happen. I don't want to take time singing what's going on exactly. I don't know, here in Estonia, in my country, we say that the way is doing walking, step by step. So let's go and make the things happen.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Don't do this to your athletes. Make them to have questions.
Okay, we started the day with education, and no matter how the coaches are learning and how they're combining their different options, still they have to match the qualification systems of their countries or international sport associations. So this brings us to the next topic, which is challenges and opportunities of national qualification framework and European qualification framework and sports federations qualification frameworks. Please welcome Andrew Graham Grant, Sport and Education Consultant.
Perfect. Okay. Good morning, everybody. And first of all, can I just say thank you very much for the invitation to come to the beautiful city of Tallinn. You may be able to pick up from my accent. I am from Scotland originally. I have lived in the north of England for the best part of 20 years. And one of the things I must thank you for is not just the lovely welcome, but also bringing the British weather with us as well. So we've really enjoyed the walk around Tallinn yesterday in the rain. It's great that we all have something in common, the British weather and the Estonian weather as well. But that's not to say that didn't make for a very enjoyable walk around the old city and the low town yesterday as well. Very nice. So, yes, I've got the interesting challenge of talking about EQF and an NQF. And I know what you're probably all thinking. Can we nip out for a coffee and get back just at the very end as well? Because on the face of it, they probably don't sound like the most exciting topics. But ultimately, if you're involved in coaching, coach education, sports policy, they're actually really, really important for us to have. So yeah, we've got them. It is a challenging topic, but as I said, hopefully over the next 20 minutes, my aim is to bring it to life and to make sure that everybody in this room can actually see why it's important to them, why it's actually relevant. First of all, I think the reason why I'm standing here, I've been asked to come and speak. I was a member of the EU expert group in human resource development in sport for the last 3 years, 2014 to 17. There was a number of documents that we produced. The two that referred mostly to qualifications were now the practical guidance on compliance of national qualifications with international qualification standards of international sport federations. Yes, it was as much fun as it sounded to put together. It was, again, quite challenging, to say the least. And the one that actually I was one of the technical authors for was the second report, which was the report on the state of play concerning the inclusion of sport qualifications in NQFs with a reference to EQFs. I think we really need to work on our titles and make them a little bit shorter and easier to remember. But those are the two qualifications produced. What we're going to look at are just really what are the conclusions that those qualifications brought, and what does it mean for policymakers at national federations. Well, the first report highlighted 4 really key challenges, and they were to guarantee the transparency, comparability and quality of sporting qualifications, to create the conditions to validate and recognise the acquired competencies, help organisations and individuals to be more professional in their approach, and to make sure there's a good match between the training and the needs of employers, public bodies and the end users. And that was from the first report on the compliance of national qualifications with international qualification standards report. So they had 4 important challenges that we need to overcome. And in the state of play report, one of the key challenges there was that the EQF, NQF landscape across the EU still remains disconnected. And of course, this is to be expected because due to the specific nature of the sport and education systems. It's also worth pointing out that the reports were based on sport qualifications, not just coaching. So they looked at officiating, sports management, sports administration, fitness instruction as well. So the reports were written in the very broadest terms. It can be quite hard just to have a coordinated EU-wide approach just for coaching. So imagine that across sports management, officiating and administration as well. So it still remains quite disconnected despite there's been a lot of good work done to have a more collaborative approach across all the member states. It's quite challenging. I think almost all 28 member states have different education systems, from the UK to France to Estonia. That alone provides some real challenges. Nobody has exactly the same education system, particularly when it comes to vocational qualifications. Another challenge that was thrown in quite recently, some of the challenges we've got about referencing the EQF is that to reference the European qualifications framework, you need to actually reference in your own member state the national qualification framework to make it a formal recognition to the EQF. There was one of our original proposals with the group was to actually say, can international sports federations reference EQF without the need for direct access to the NQF? And in some countries, and for some sports, that would be a really positive step forward. Because going on the NQF can be quite challenging because you also have an awful lot of the internal bureaucracy and education system challenges to overcome. But on the 22nd of May, the Council actually adopted a recommendation that prohibits international qualifications from having a direct relationship to the EQF, meaning that, again, international qualifications, international sport federations need to work through the national federations that need to go on to the national qualification framework. And again, it's another challenge that we need to consider when we're trying to look at EQF, NQF, and coaching qualifications. However, one of the positives that did come out of that from our perspective, standing here looking at a coordinated European-wide approach to coach qualifications, the Commission will now look to, and I quote directly, support the setting up of voluntary procedures on the levelling of international qualifications through national qualification frameworks or systems, and information exchange and consultation between Member States on those procedures to ensure consistency. And that's really important because I'll pick up further on the presentation a piece of work that was done by Jose's organisation, the European Coach Council, and the International Council for Coaching Excellence, which was Sergio spoke about yesterday, and it was an Erasmus Plus funded project, Coach Learn, and that actually provides, I believe, an opportunity for this voluntary procedure of the levelling of international qualifications. So we've got a number of challenges, as you can imagine, across all 28 member states, across all the national sport federations, and across all the international sport federations. How do we have a coordinated approach? Well, I think we can set aside a blueprint for the development of sport coaching qualifications, and this is where I think it really becomes relevant to everybody here in this room. What can we actually do with the information? It seems appropriate that the organisations which design qualifications, and that would be from a coaching perspective, mostly your national federations, possibly with some support from a central agency in sport and sports coaching, providers of training to use a reference tool, and again a bolded reference tool because that's where the link will come in with the European Sports Coaching Framework. We need to have a tool that's based on a clear model using the appropriate language and common standard terms. And again, that's a real challenge because across all 28 member states and across all the different sports and sport federations, we all have our own different language and terminology as well. So when we're looking at comparing qualifications and level 1 coaching in football with a level 1 coaching in basketball, with a level 3 and a level 2, and across all member states, it becomes really quite challenging. They're also aligned to this with the practical guidance document recommended that there are a number of tools already available as well. Some of you may know these quite well, but the work of CEDIFOP in the vocational training sector, they have some work that can be done there, so we should be referencing what already exists. ECVET is another tool for which is the vocational education and training. So ECVET exists and they have some tools that can be used as well to try to align competencies of coaching between sports and between member states. There should be an alignment with the ECTS to enable contribution of credits from and to the university and higher level of education as well. The other one that wasn't mentioned there that I also think needs to be put in is ESCO, which is the Skills, Competency, Occupation tools as well that's been currently developed. So ESCO would be another reference point that we could all use when we're looking at trying to provide alignment across coaching qualifications. You probably noticed that there's a lot of text on a lot of my PowerPoints. There's a reason for that. As I mentioned, I have got a bit of a Scottish accent, and don't just think of these as PowerPoints. Think of these as subtitles. So if anybody is struggling to pick up on the accent, I'm not sure if they're available afterwards as part of the conference. If not, feel free to send me an email. The email's up there. Send me an email and I'm more than happy to share these slides. So they actually act as a handout and a summary as well. So if anybody actually wants them, feel free to have them. So I've said that there because you've got a bit more information that we can look at. I am going to move forward a little bit. And again, will be available. I'm more than happy to make them available afterwards for those that want to take a bit more time to read and digest. Another thing that we need to actually look at as another challenge is gathering the evidence of sports qualifications through a systemic and consistent data collection process. One of the real challenges that we had as the expert group was trying to get data that was comparable between all 28 member states. Again, we all have different definitions of of coaching, sports management and administration and fitness instructors as well. So there's real difficulty with actually having a consistent data collection process. There are some organisations like Eurostat that provided some, but most of the member states have to go and find their own opportunities to find those the evidence, going back to whether it's going back to the universities, going back to the national sports federations, going back to the match officiating as well. And again, all different 28 member states have different levels of picking up that data. So that was a real challenge, and it's something I think that we can collectively do, because the more evidence we have that says this many people are coaching and this is the impact they're making on the economy, on society, the easier it becomes for us to go and get funding, the easier it becomes for us to go and drive political change, saying coaches can make a difference. So that the more that we collectively can provide data and evidence, the stronger our case would be for sports coaching and the role it can play in society. I mentioned there this it should actually highlight, and we did this, the impact sports qualifications have in economic benefits, volunteering, good governance and employability. And actually sports qualifications, and particularly coaching, was referenced in two other documents that two different other expert groups did. That was the recommendations on the contribution of sport to the employability of young people, and also grassroots sport shaping Europe. So two other documents, two different expert groups were referencing coaching and the role that coaching qualifications can have. So there's an awful lot of cross value with sports coaching qualifications. So what can we do if we want to really continue this blueprint for making change and aligning our coaching qualifications across the EU? We need to continue to promote whether we're working as a national federation or a central agency or European level, we need to promote the benefits of national and international member states working collaboratively. And I'll come to that in a second. This should also reinforce the benefits of sport persons being trained, qualified and employed in a collaborative manner, and should align with the recommendations in the EU expert group. We should be promoting the benefits of engaging the wider stakeholders. And there's a number, again, used with ICVET, the national contact points. Each member state should have one. They could be another useful point to help reference and provide levels of equivalency for your qualifications. They use a competency-based approach. I recognise the value of informal and non-formal learning and training, as defined by CEDIFOP and defined by Jose as well earlier on. So, as he mentioned there, 70-20-10, whether it's exactly right, but as I said, it's a really good reference point. 70% of our time approximately is learning comes from informal approaches. Yet, as national federations and international federations, we tend not to provide any real value towards that in terms of might be CPD license points, or it might be qualification or credits. But actually 70%, and I agree with Jose, that actually it's probably more likely to go increasing. We get more learning from YouTube, from social media. Our informal learning is probably growing over time, and yet as our coach qualification systems don't yet fully account for this increase in informal learning and its importance. I mentioned the voluntary reference framework. And this is the project that was called Coach Learn. It was an Erasmus Plus funded programme, and it was led by the International Council for Coaching Excellence and also the European Coaching Council, the ECC. And it was a framework, and it was designed purposely to be flexible, yet recognise different reference points across the Union for the development of coach education programmes and coaching systems. And I like this because a number of our national coaching qualifications are not yet on national qualification frameworks. The voluntary reference point that the European Sports Coaching Framework provides, it's not dependent on being on a national qualification framework. It can actually be an informal referencing that can allow you to align a coaching qualification in one sport in one member state with another sport in another member state. And there, if you go on the website, which is highly recommended, there's a whole series of tools that can be downloaded and used that can allow a national federation and international federations to make that recognition of what kind of qualification you have, what level is it. So looking forwards, what's the next few years hold? Well, the new EU Work Plan for Sport, 2017-20, great news for all of us in the room with a particularly strong coaching background. Coaching has actually now been identified, as we know from the purpose of the conference here, as one of the key areas for the EU expert group on human resource development to look at, and particularly the role of coaches in society. And also the education in and through sport is another area which actually really has some strong benefits and values for all of us here in the room that we can work with. We need to continue to push this further long-term collaboration, because it would enhance the mobility of the workforce by smoothing the equivalency of the qualifications across all the nations and sport federations, and it potentially allows for the recognised prior learning to be integrated. Again, another link to the previous presentation. Mose, when recognised prior learning should be the right of a learning coach to say, I have previously done this, therefore I do not need to repeat it. It should actually be a key principle for the learner to say, I want to be recognised for work I have done previously, or a qualification I have achieved, or an increasingly recognised for some of the non-formal learning that's taking place as well. So, and it really comes down to trust between member states and trust between national and international sport federations. So that's if I am working in basketball, can I trust that the quality of training that somebody's got from the swimming organisation in a different member state is valued? Can I say, yes, I will recognise that prior learning? And one of the challenges for recognised prior learning is, I personally, and I know this from the UK, I don't think we fully trust one another's training provision and education provision. And until we have that, then the system of recognised prior learning really won't be as powerful as it could be and should be. The Europe Strategy 2020 outlines many benefits that sport can provide, and in sport we can take that as coaching as well, tackling health and obesity, creating social inclusion. And that's, I think, a really key area for us. National sport federations, we need to continue to include our qualifications on the NQF and reference the EQF as well. And Europe-wide core sports coaching content should be agreed by the national and international sport federations to ensure standardisation of coach knowledge and competencies. We'll come to that in a minute, because we're going to have a little go at something that might work, might not, but we'll have a look at that. And adopting, the bottom one there, adopting the European Sports Coach Framework can enhance the recognised prior learning and recognition of equivalent qualifications if used properly. Oh, can we see these? Can we see these? Now, I'm going to have a quick go just to finish up. I'm not sure what I'm doing for time. Because normally when I do these, we're coaches, we're coach educators, I prefer the whiteboard. I'd like to get a whiteboard or flip charts and we just do this. And I wanted to have a bit of a flip chart and whiteboard session, but you couldn't really do it. They weren't happy if I was going to start writing with pen all over the white projector. So I was sitting watching yesterday, I thought, there's an awful lot of text in my presentation, but what can we do? So we like a picture, and I don't know whether if you can get close enough to see over there or over there, or this one here. But I also use the strategic tool of what is our line of sight. So I think there's an awful lot of people I spoke to were from a national federation, or from an international federation, or from the central agency for sport. Now that might be the ministry, or it may be a ENGSO kind of organisation that are publicly funded. But the first one we got, so if you are working for a single national federation, and let's put us in the centre here, what is it we're actually looking at? I've kept it reasonably simple. We've got probably 4 areas, and this ties in with the European Sports Coaching Framework. You have the talent coaching, elite or high-level performance coaching, grassroots or recreational, and children's coaching. Now within them all, they've also got many splits. So children could be grassroots clubs, 12 to 16 secondary school, 6 to 11 years old, 3 to 5 year old. So, and you could do that for performance, so it could be a professional, Olympic, disability sport as well. So we can break each of them down. Let's just work on those 4. So I'm working for a national federation. There are 3 different colours that we've got. And I think the red strand is really important. The red strand is core coaching skills. So as a national federation, we have to say, what are the core skills that a performance coach needs, talent coach needs, children's coach needs, and a grassroots coach needs. And if we can design them up to first level or EQF, probably level 2, maybe level 3, that becomes our level 1 program. So we've got those red ones there. So maybe all of these coaches can be on the same program, because the core coaching skills of how to plan, how to do a risk assessment, how to safeguard children and vulnerable adults, actually every coach needs to do that. So we actually start putting together our coaching framework. We use the EQF and the NQF because we decide a level 1 will be the same level or the same abilities and competencies for those levels as well. So we actually start putting them all together like that. The blue is your sport specific, so technical, tactical. As the National Federation, you can decide, you actually have some control over what the blue sport specific one is, but you'll be influenced, potentially be influenced by your international federation as well. So you decide as basketball, maybe you work with FIBA and say, actually our level 1 competency should be to have that level of technical and tactical. The National Federation decides, actually that's the core skills. And the other colour, which I thought was green, but seems to have come out as more of a yellow, is understanding of the domain. And that's where that will change from each of them. So the domain for there is you need to understand stuff about coaching talent. So you might need to understand a little bit more about the relative age effect, for example. Down there, that colour might be more about anti-doping, or it might be the duty of care that's been brought up for working with in high-performance sports. And it will differ from grassroots to there. So you will have some of it will be core, some of it sport-specific, the federation decide, and some of it will be decided by the domain, and that will probably change. That may not need to be a qualification, and in many cases that will actually more likely to be non-formal training or CPD. So that's one national federation. Let's go up a level. So now let's look at things. If we were the central agency for one country, a member state, so you might be the Ministry for Sport or another organisation. So we're now the central agency looking at this. Now if we want to have a coordinated approach, the central agency could decide all the red, all the core coaching skills must be the same for every single national federation in our member state. So you might have 45, maybe even 50 different sports, and you're now saying as a central agency, my role is to make sure that the core is exactly the same for basketball, football, judo, golf, cricket, swimming, skiing, etc., etc. So that core becomes owned by the central agency. Now, if we have that coordination at central agency national level, then what you have got is the opportunity for recognised prior learning. So if somebody's a basketball skiing coach at level 2, we know they've done them, and if they want to then say, I need to add football because I'm a multi-sports coach, then they can come in and they can jump into football at level 2. We have that equivalency. But we have that because actually we know there's a central agency that controls the core coaching skills. The blue becomes challenging because now, if you want to have EQF comparability between member states, your international federations have a role to play here. So the international federations could actually put the blue lines in place and saying, level 1, this is the technical, tactical we need to know, level 2, level 3, level 4. So that blue becomes owned by, or not owned by, because I think we had this challenge when we used the term in one of the reports, compliance. The national federations will not be compliant to an international board generally. They need to work collaboratively. So there needs to be a collaborative approach. So you've got the sport specific can be influenced by the International Sport Federation, but they could also coordinate it. And the final one, and this is the real challenge, I guess this is one of the challenges we've got going forward. How do we look at this from the European coordinated level? So we're sitting here as if you're a member of the EU expert group or you are the international federation for your sport, How do we have a coordinated coach qualification system that really works? And this is where it got really, really fun. So I put a few different countries in there. Estonia, obviously, because I'm here. And we put UK down in the bottom corner because we don't know whether we're here or whether we're going. So we've stuck us out in the bottom corner till we decide. But you can imagine that for all 28 member states at the moment. So this is where it's really challenged. So we're looking at this from 28 member states. And the European Central Agency to be decided. It could be the European Coaching Council or International Council for Coaching Excellence, or it could be the European Unit for Sport with the Commission. But there could be a central coordinating agency. We have every member state now has the core coaching skills that are exactly the same across all 28 member states. This really, you talked about utopia. This is the utopia that we're talking about. We're going to keep walking. We probably will never get here. This really coordinated approach. We have coach profiles that have been agreed, so we all know what an expert coach in children is. That's in Poland, an expert coach in children in Germany, an expert coach in children in Holland. So we've all got agreed profiles as well. So we all know this is what an expert coach should look like. And we also have our domain-specific training, which could be, now that could be online learning, it could be from an international federation, could be a national federation, could be a private provider. But this is where it comes down to who trusts them. Well, I would trust them if it was approved by a central agency. So if it had a stamp of approval from a European Central Agency, we could all say, Germany could say, aye, that's been approved by an agency that we all recognise, we all trust, therefore we can then use that as part of our coaching qualification system. And all of this is linked by, we recognise there's a European qualification framework, so we all know the level. There's the European Sports Coaching Framework that links all the member states. There are the core coaching skills that we've all agreed. And there's an approval of the domain-specific training. And there's links with the International Federation who have set the technical and tactical requirements to do that. Probably one of the most famous examples of that kind of approach is the UEFA license, where they can go into the member states and they say, this is the technical and tactical that you must deliver as part of the UEFA A license, B license, or Pro license. And if you deliver that, then you can use the UEFA stamp on your coaching qualifications. So they've got that, but they also have a very strong brand name. They're UEFA, they're all over the Champions League, so they have a very strong brand name to make it worthwhile, and it gives them some profile and some real influence to do that. But that would be the equivalent one there. But that, and to take Jose's line, that's where we need to keep walking to. If we wanted to have a coordinated European-wide sports coaching qualification framework. It's a challenge, but I'm all set for making that walk, and hopefully you will be too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. To the time limit, we don't have questions now, but feel free to find Andy during the coffee break and ask the questions. As it is Estonian Presidency, it is good to share Estonian practices, and I'm very happy to invite to the stage Toomas Tõnise, board member of Estonian Olympic Committee and head of Estonian Foundation of Sports, Education and Information. And we are talking about the Estonian coach register and data-based policy making.
Good morning everybody. Well, it's not yet the morning, it's already a young afternoon. But at first, congratulations to France on your National Day. Please applause to France. So, I would like to present Estonian experience, and I hope this audience values the work of coaches, and I know that we are promoting the future role and status of coaches, and this is the main idea and the main aim we are gathered here today. But speaking about Estonian experiences, this is not only my presentation, this is a collective work we have done inside last 30 years almost And if to show what is the picture of Estonia for the moment, we have started with the coaches qualifications system from 2003, and it was included into the national qualification framework immediately. It means 2004. And as Estonian national qualification framework is quite similar, it's practically similar to the European qualification framework. And then we finalized in 2013 that all licensed coaches are practically included into the European qualification framework. And for the moment, we have in Estonia almost 3,400 licensed coaches, but the number of coaches at all is 4,400. We are very happy about the Estonian sports register, and I will talk about it quite in details. And this sports register is practically state information system, and it's related with all other state registers. In our sports register, we have 2,600 and more sports organizations. As I told, 3,383 coaches and sports facilities, more than 3,000. And all these units are related to each other. It means if we are looking at coaches, then we know to which organization they belong and in which facilities they are practicing. And sports register is not only a collection of statistics, but it's an excellent tool for making sports policy in all levels. The level of central government, level of local authorities, and also at the level of sports organizations. And if my speech could be limited to 3 minutes, then I could stop here. But I would like to show you a little more and to speak about the quite difficult way we have gone through to reach the situation of today. As in Latvia, Lithuania, and in other more countries, 30 years ago we had a very centralized system. Sports was centrally planned. And to look at the numbers, we had approximately 40,000 kids and children in sports schools. And I look exactly, we had 1,400 coaches, half paid, half paid. And the education system of coaches was only formal in 2 universities and also outside Estonia. And also the salaries of coaches were very strongly planned and paid from state budgets. Life is changing, and also sport changed. And in the beginning of 90s, sport in Estonia was totally decentralized. And it opened the initiative of many people. And the result of this, thousands of sports clubs were founded, and the new structure of sports organization was built up. It meant the fast growth of participation in many sports, almost triple growth. But during the problems in the transition period, the salaries of coaches were not secured. And in the market, the profession of coach was not very highly valuated. And on the other hand, if we had more sports clubs and more participants, we need to have more coaches. And it means that sports clubs took many people to act as a coach without preparation. They were active, initiative people, but sports clubs were not ready to educate them. They just use the people, initiative, and readiness to work. And just to illustrate the situation, you can see the numbers after 10 years. 30 years ago, number of children, number of participants, and number of coaches. 10 years later, practically the same number of coaches and little growth of participation. But also after 20 years, the number of participants much higher, and also the number of coaches much higher. And for today, we have almost 100,000 kids and children practicing sports, participants all more than 160,000, and also almost 1,000 paid, full-time paid coaches. The number of coaches at all, 4,400. But how did we build it up? We realized in the beginning of 2000 that situation is quite critical. And we stated that we have no practical information who is coaching. How many coaches do we have by territories or by sports? And the situation was quite terrifying, because everyone could practice as a coach in spite of qualities, knowledge, and competences. And we had no rules and standards for training and evaluating coaches' competences. Coaches' training and in-service training were chaotic and unsystematic. And there was practically no motivation, no material, no moral for coaches' competencies and systematic training. And we realized that this was very dangerous for the credibility of sport, for the credibility of sports organization, and also very dangerous for the credibility of profession as coach. And then we took initiative. Estonian Olympic Committee took initiative, and we worked out the coaches' qualification standards, system of coaches' qualification, and we started to realize it in 2004. It means we have a system for now that the Estonian Olympic Committee is an awarding body. Estonian Olympic Committee gives the licenses to coaches. And it's regulated by the law, and of course, Estonian Olympic Committee cannot do it alone. The Olympic Committee is working together with all sports federations. It means coaches' qualification commissions are in every sports federation, and using the best personalities, best knowledge in specific sports. But we must have central rules, and we have horizontally harmonized rules, agreed preconditions, requirements on education and working experience, and also rules for regular in-service training. And we have evaluation in the form of examinations and testing, both in general knowledge and skills in specialization. And the specialization in Estonia, we have almost 90 different sports which are included into this system. Not news for you, but I will repeat it. Our coaches are licensed at 6 levels. EQF 3, it's a first level, to EQF 8, it's a maximum level. And we named the numbers to the specific names of coaches. Level 3 is assistant coach, number 4 junior coach, number 5 coach, then senior coach, master coach, and elite coach. Better to understand, to promote the profession of coaches. And you can see also division of coaches between different levels, and you can see that from level 5 it's a quite big jump up. And the reason is very simple. I will talk about it also. Government decided to support coaches' profession to begin with a level 5. It means more qualifications, more competencies, and it must be subsidized and motivated. And about the preparation, preconditions. We have divided the knowledge, what is necessary for coaches, into 2 lines. The first line is so-called general subjects, and another line is a specialized knowledge in different sports. And we are working in very close cooperation with 2 universities, Tallinn University and Tartu University. And the 2 universities are mainly helping us to give knowledge in general subjects. It means all pedagogical anatomy and also how society works and knowledge about legislation and all necessary things for coaches. As you can see, we have worked out also preconditions and how many hours coach must be prepared. And the first level, it's 60 hours. It seems to be very low. And it was specially made very low to help the access for voluntary coaches or parents or whoever wants to be part of coaches' qualification system, easy to step in, easy to have first knowledge. And then additional 100 hours, and then additional 140 hours, and to continue also with university diplomas, bachelor, master degrees. And there is, as a dream point, level 8, it's very rare. We are not gave it out too often. Just only 2 coaches in Estonia have level number 8. About sports register. It's quite complicated to introduce a coach's qualification without mapping the situation, without the feedback, and it's an excellent tool to make sports policy, also to plan future activities. And to speak very shortly about sports register, this is, of course, a classical collection of sports data. It's normal. And in Estonia, statistical department did it till 2010. We got statistical data from statistical department, but according to the regulations in Estonia and maybe in other countries, there is a protection of statistical data, and they are not able to give out concrete data about one unit. There is summarized data about one city or one sports, but not detailed for one sports club. But we were very much interested what's going on in concrete club to watch, to help, to organize better activities. And now we have our sports register, which give to us centralized data and also possibilities to look at every unit, look at every coach. And I'm really sure that this helps policymakers at every level to make better decisions, and it helps to create sport more in credible way, and more trustfulness and transparency in sports. And also helps families, parents to look where their kids or children could go to practice, in what club, with help of which trainers. Just to open the coaches register and what kind of data we are using in coaches register. And of course, there is a public picture for public use, and we have in public use information about each coach, first name, family name, place of residence on the level of county and local municipality, information about their qualifications, sports level, validity, and also where the coach is working. But we have more valuable information in the stomach of coach's register. And for official use, we have ID codes of all ID code of all coaches. It's connected with the names. We have a date of birth, it means age, gender. We have concrete addresses, contact phone numbers and emails of each coaches. We have information about their education, including higher education and specialized in sports. And we have more information about their qualification. Are they applying for qualifications, or it's already passed, it's not active anymore? We have information about their place of work, how many years they have worked there. And we have also information what kind of subsidy programs have been used to help such coaches. Also information how many courses, educational courses they have gone through and what they are doing now. And sorry to say, but also information about the sanctions and disqualifications concerning the doping affairs or other treatment. And I'm very happy to inform you that the status of coaches in Estonia is fixed in Sports Act. And you can see there is paragraph 6.2. Coach is a sports specialist who instructs sportsmen and sportswomen and other person participating in sports, and who has a professional qualification of coach within the meaning of Professional Act. And it gives a lot of possibility to secure and promote the profession of coach. With this data in our sports register, we are cooperating with different agencies. And one of the very important partners is taxation department. They have a lot of information about every person as a taxpayer, and we are combining the data from sports register with their register, and you can see the development of coaches' profession in Estonia last 5 years. The number is increasing. The number of employed coaches is increasing. And there is a special name, loyal coaches. It means a coach who is working only in one sports club and is paid only by one sports club. It means he is working all time and in one concrete place, and it gives more security to sports process. And you can see all these numbers are in good process. And to use my last minute, what kind of help sports register and the coaches register can give to the policymakers? And I know that Ministry of Culture responsible for sports in Estonia is using the data for dividing subsidies for sports federations. It means number of coaches, number of participants, sports results, etc., etc. Then it's very important, it's already third year, government is supporting coaches which are working with children and youth, and all this valuable information is from the coaches register. And also government is awarding state sports scholarship and all relevant information from register. Local authorities, very important, and I think it's a core point. If they are supporting sport, it must be done on the evidence base, and sports register gave this evidence base. We have in Estonia a special foundation. It's a cultural endowment. It's supporting sports and culture. And last year, this endowment has also used the data from sports register. And I'm very happy that sports federations and Olympic Committee, they are using the data, planning and realizing educational activities and different sports activities. Dear audience, thank you. This was a small piece from Estonian experience.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Thomas. From my experience, I can assure that Thomas and his team has done an excellent job with the register and the coaching system as I was using it myself too. But the questions to Thomas we will leave to the panel, which comes shortly. But before that, we like to share one small video clip about Estonian sport video. So as you can see, sport is for our country very important, and this is the way we can express ourselves in a great way. But we continue with our today's first panel discussion, and it is called "What Skills Will Coaches of the Future Need?" And please welcome Jose Ferreira Curado, Andy Grant, Thomas Tõnise, the speakers we had already. Then Agata Černovska, Policy Officer, Sport Unit, European Commission. Christian Port from yesterday's speakers, a Professor of the University of Tallinn. And panel discussion is moderated by Kai Taylor, Chair of EU Expert Group of Human Resource Management in Sport.
Do you think he's good?
Secure, please.
Thank you. Is that working? Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to moderate this panel. We'll quickly move on because I think we're running a bit behind time. And unlike yesterday where we were about an hour late, I've got a flight to catch this afternoon, so we won't be an hour late this session. I'd like to follow up on a number of the presentations that we've just seen today. And I'll probably start with Ande and Jose to just expand on the discussion that Jose started with regards where we may be in the question that we asked in 10 years' time. If we're having this panel in 10 years' time, what would you hope to see in terms of coach education, coach support, and the services that coaches might be delivering?
I would love to start with the two big challenges that coaches are going to face. One is related with the coach's power and the coach's discourse. What do I mean by that? Everybody knows that when coaches speak about athletes, they usually use the term my athletes, my players. This seems not to be important, but in my opinion and other persons, it's very, very important. Because when I say my players, this is not just a wording game. When I say my players, this has behind it a certain concept of power, the top-down decision-making process. Our kids are no longer to accept, I mean in the democratic countries. Maybe in some contexts, if we say to a kid to jump down, it just jumps down without questioning. But our kids, they start questioning the way coaches usually work. So I have to talk about the players I coach, not my players. Second, all the sciences that support the process of coaching became performance sciences, including psychology. So this has led us to a point where the focus is on the body of the athlete. And we need to change that focus. We need to be focused on the person as a whole and not on the body. Because if we think that the body is always coachable, perfectable, become better and better because of the need of results, from here to the doping, for instance, is a small step. So we need to shift our focus from the body to the whole person. And I'm asking you, do you know who is the thing that athletes most appreciate in their coaches? There are things written. I've heard several high-performance athletes saying that the most important for them is that the coach deals with them first as a person and then the athlete. And somewhere and sometimes and lots of time we are changing the thing. We think about the athlete instead of thinking first about the person. So those are my two first proposals for the next 10 years for coaches to think about and change.
Andy, a slightly different direction of question for you. Leading on from Sergio's presentation yesterday, where he talked about 9 million coaches compared to 2 million police officers, 2 million teachers. What struck me was that police officers and teachers are very much a recognised formal pathway of employment. They're in a structure where coaching not necessarily is. It's more informal. You know, volunteers, not a recognised coach. Do you think what we need to do in the future is how do we move the coaching environment and the coaches into the same recognition and standing that, say, a police officer or a teacher has?
Yeah, that really good question. I think it will be in 10 years' time. I think we need to start talking about this now. We talk about coaches as this one homogenous group, and actually, of course, they're not. One of the challenges with 9 million we have professional coaches who will be paid €3 million a year to coach Manchester United. We have the vocational coaches who do it because it's a passion. We have the volunteer coaches who do it only because there's no one else there to do it. And I think over the next 10 years, we need to stop looking at coaches as this one group. We need to see them as, and I think there will be an increased level of specialism, where we will see a professional coaching workforce, and we will treat them as profession, and we will have a volunteer workforce, and we treat them as volunteers, and our coach education and training support needs to account for the different kinds of coaches that are there. I think that the best analogy I always use for coaching, it's like cooking. Now, you've got within cooking, you will have Michelin-starred chefs, but you also have people who are happy just to put some beans on toast and give that to the kid. And then you have the people who have dinner parties and the barbecues. Coaches is very similar. Everybody thinks that they can coach, but it's a really diverse group that need to be there. So I think our education needs to account for the fact that coaches aren't just a single profession. It's multitude of highly paid, semi-paid, unpaid, volunteers, people that don't even want to be there, but they've got no choice because if they didn't, the children would have nothing to do. And that makes it a real challenge for the next 10 years for us to do. So I think that certainly would be one thing we need to be considerate of, I think, over the next 10 years, is not just treating coaches as like they're the one entity. And if we do that, then I think we can start to say, actually, coaching is a profession. For some people, not for all 9 million, but maybe for 2 million, it's a profession. For the rest, we know it's a volunteer. In fact, we know that we are competing for your active leisure time. So we're competing with Netflix, the cinema, PlayStation, because if we have too many challenges and obstacles in the way, then the coaches and their children, because often they're coaching their own children, they'll go and do something else where they don't need to have those obstacles to overcome. So that's a completely different perspective from the paid professional market as well, and we need to start treating them separately, not as one big group.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, following up on your parent coach, it is my involvement in coaching. My son, as I help at his rugby clubs, they call us daddy coaches. Very much but it's, even with that, we very much feel isolated as an individual, and it's not necessarily a profession that, as a police officer or a teacher, where you feel as a part of a common structure. You feel a police officer, you have a commonality with them, where I see coaching can be very isolating at times. So to follow up on a very interesting presentation by Thomas, where you talked about your framework and your register, do you see that as part of a way of giving coaches identity and recognition, so they don't feel isolated, they feel part of a movement, a group of individuals that can rely on each other?
Yes, I think we are already in the halfway. But to speak about the future and what will happen after 10 years or later, I think the participation in sports will grow, will increase totally in big numbers. It means we need more coaches. We need more qualified coaches, and we need an excellent toolbox for each coach, for every coach. But what I think about the profession as a coach, I think we should raise the status of coach or the position of coach not almost, at the same level as the teachers, because they are fulfilling very important tasks in society, not only for the sports results, but creating, as Christian told yesterday, a family around them, and teaching and giving self-confidence to young persons. And it's for all next years in their lives.
Following up on that, and some of the stuff that's been talked about, recognition of coaches, did any of you, probably Christian, did you see the press release from Paris, I don't know whether we call it 2014 or 2028 yesterday, with regards their idea for Olympic medals, which included separate pull-off bits of medal that you can pass on to the coach? Do you think that, at least at the elite level, coaches are starting to get the recognition that they deserve?
it's quite typical that if we look backwards, we see that the sports just happened. It was isolated phenomena. It was more like hedonistic event that nobody cares. But it is good to have. But it started to be that sport has a goal, and performance-based sport showed the goal firstly, and then it means that the coach has to have some kind of knowledge and skills and preparation. But now we start to see that sports is more beneficial for the society as such, and now we start to demand that it just doesn't happen, but it must be in some way have guarantees of qualities and other such stuff. So the benefits coming out of sports and physical activities are becoming aware among societies. So the demands are also increasing, and this is just look how long it took to recognize the coach by the gold medalist. It is just now. And probably it will be faster. We recognize teachers and policemen and doctors because the result is there tangible. But the coaching it just happened. But now we start to see that it can't be a wild phenomenon. So we start to demand some kind of structure from the knowledge and other quality stuff from the coaching.
Just to follow up on that, and to follow up on Andy's presentation, where he started talking about the recognition of specialist coaches with regards to those that work with elite athletes, those that work with what we in the UK would call grassroots level participants. Do you see that as a movement forward? Because at the moment it's very much, you're a coach, you go through the system.
Yeah, it's like a carpenter and I don't know, furniture maker. Both use wood, but the outcome is different, and both are valuable. But the more we know and the more we appreciate the outcome, the more we start to differentiate the qualities. And then so if one of the tasks is to involve children and develop their physiology and culture and understanding and life skills, another part is focus on performance only. This is different tool set, and then you can't use the MacGyver's or the Swiss Army knife for all the tasks. It is a nice gift, but nobody uses it. You have to have different approaches to it. So.
Okay, so we've started to say that we need to professionalise, recognise,
yes,
be more specific. Do you, probably back to yours, do you think the current systems that you see across your members in the European Coaching Council and the International and across Europe are actually capable of delivering that change on their own? So I'm talking about the coach trainers.
I hope so, but I don't think it's going to be an easy task to be done. And because there are so many differences, and we are talking just about Europe, but if you think about the rest of the world, you have national organizations, national federations, international federations, higher education institutions, Olympic committees, everyone involved in coaching education with different views, with different perspectives. As you have seen before, in my country, we have 4 levels of coaches. Estonia has 6. So we have a problem here to start. In Europe, Netherlands has 5, Italy 4. So this is the reason why the International Council for Coaching Excellence is trying, through those publications, to have at least a common language. And in my opinion, this has to be the first step for the future of the profession. First of all, let's speak the same language around at least Europe, and then let's move away. When we spoke about a profession, any profession needs to have certain obligations, ethical foundations, so and so. The public representation, and so For the future, I turn back to my step-by-step way. I would be happy if in the next 10 years I could hear everybody speaking about the same language. This is my deadline. I'm probably the oldest guy in this room, so the time that I have is not that much, but I would be happy when I reach the 85 years to see in Europe a common language in relation with coaches. First step, and then the others.
So that's a good step to start with, a common language across coaches across Europe. So that actually leads me nicely on to the question. It's always nice to have somebody from the Commission on the panel, because you can always ask, and what money are you going to give us to sort it out? Yeah. So what I want to talk to you about is, why does the Commission see coaching and coaching across Europe as important, and how do you think you can help the situation where there is obviously a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge across Europe, but at the moment it doesn't necessarily fit?
So, first of all, I would say that coaching was for many years a bit maybe underestimated at the EU level. We're not putting the coach in the center of attention. And now what we want to change is to put the coach, okay, this is the most important person in the development of the sport strategy, and to try to focus more on the coach itself. So we probably agree, we can agree here, we heard many people speaking about the changing role in society of coaches. And we know that we need to prepare coaches better. So how the Commission or the EU in general can help is for sure to bring those countries together and to give opportunity to exchange good practices, like what we are doing now during this conference. But not only this, we have the expert groups, which you guys know very well because you were chairing those two groups. Hopefully, we'll be able in 10 years to, dreams can come true sometimes, so I hope that we'll speak one language. I have to tell you that it's very difficult. With Esperanto, it didn't work, unfortunately, but maybe in the coaches will be the first area where it will work. We have as well, you asked indirectly about money. We have the financial instrument.
I don't think it was indirect.
Yes. The financial instrument as well. We have the Erasmus Plus program, which a part is dedicated to sport. And this year, for the first time, there is a separate priority link, not maybe to coaches directly as well, but to education, which is somewhere there. And probably, because I cannot say, because only in 2 weeks we'll publish the list of the successful projects, but I think more or less 20-25 projects will be dedicated to coaches' education and to coaches. So I think like this we can learn a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd just like to move on to one other topic that's appeared in a number of discussions and presentations over the 2 days, and that's what we in the UK would call duty of care of athletes. Actually, what skills and what support needs to be put around an athlete with regards talking about the whole athlete, not necessarily their physical well-being, but their mental well-being. And we've done a lot of work in the UK with regards to a duty of care report to look at this with regards to safeguarding, dual career, which came up yesterday in a discussion, and I'm pleased to see that Estonia's next conference in their presidency is on dual career. But it does occur to me that coaches can become a bit of, you must know everything. Yeah, a coach can sometimes be the strength and conditionist, the physiotherapist, because there is no other support there available. Do we have to set the common language, what is understood as a coach, to actually say, no, this is what a coach delivers sport? Or is a coach, in a more broader sense of the word, a manager? a safeguarder, a strength and conditionist, what should we be looking for in the training of a coach? Is it technical or is it more holistical?
I think it's, again, you go back to the fact the coaches in grassroots have got different pressures than the coaches in the talent and performance. In terms of the duty of care, I think the area that's going to be most challenging will probably be around that talent development section there, because we know that to produce top level athletes, they need to be resilient, they need to be able to, they need to work under pressure, they need that, and the coach often has to either create that through their own personality, through harsh criticism, challenging, or creating an environment that can be very difficult. And increasingly, I think that the line of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, is continually going on to the safer side. We've had some high-profile cases in the UK recently where people have been challenged in the performance environment that the practices that I think probably 20 years ago probably wouldn't have been flagged as a major issue, has definitely now been flagged as this is a major duty of care issue. And I think the next 10 years we'll see that line increasingly come down towards coaches being more nervous, more risk averse in terms of what can I say to these athletes that I think I'm going to inspire them, because I'm going to make them try harder and go out of their comfort zone. But for some athletes, I think that being pushed out of the comfort zone might become a duty of care issue. And I think it's a real challenge for coaches working in that environment to realise what will be acceptable. And I think what was acceptable 10 years ago is different from what's acceptable now. And I think what's acceptable now will be different from what's acceptable in another 10 years' time. And you talked about common language. I'm not sure it will be a common language. I think we will only know based on trial and error. And unfortunately, that error might lead to some high-profile legal cases as well. So I really think that the skills of the coaches working in that area around duty of care is going to be a real challenge for them going forward.
Just going back to Thomas, do you think that sometimes coaches, it suits people that there is a woolliness? That's very, very, very English term. There is not surety about what a coach delivers because it suits, because anything can be thrown at a coach. It can be their responsibility to sort it out. And very much what Roy said yesterday, you don't actually become a coach till you're sacked. That basically it suits people to have somebody that they can throw everything at and then blame, and actually that may be down to recognition and the professionalisation support. But do you think that's a danger that happens to some coaches?
Yeah, but I would like to look at this from another point, that I have seen thousands of coaches in my life, and last 15 years I'm living in a small village, and we have school, and there is approximately 60-65 students at school, and we have sports clubs in Aegvidu, small village, this place, and almost all pupils are members of sports clubs. They are practicing different sports, and I started to look very carefully at the coaches, what they are doing, and they are very dedicated. They have time for children, and they are talking with kids, not only training but talking, and open to different points in life. And it's ideal situation, speaking about dual career or whatever. If your coach is telling you what kind of values do we have in society, in our lives, that not only result is important, but the play, the game, the situation is important, and the friendship is important. And if your coach will tell you that you have to learn mathematics or languages to manage in your life, it's a very strong impact for the lives of young children. And I think this is a challenge we have, how to develop the capabilities of coaches to look wider at the people's lives, not only on a very narrow sports side.
Yes, taking from Sergio's yesterday's example of a coach as a carriage taking from one point to other, we have a better definition and an understanding what the car is. We know what the car is, and the car hasn't changed for 100 years. It has been a little bit polished, but the car is the same. But now the car is changing absolutely totally. It is starting to self-drive and so on. And so it is emerging from how and what we know more. So also regarding what the qualities and knowledge and skills the coach needs, it is dangerous to define it rigidly. As Jose also said, that it is an open game and there are emergent properties developing, but we should at least define what the coach is, as what the car is, what it means, what it should do. And within this framework, everybody has some intellectual individuality and uniqueness. They will find the ways to do it. And this is also related to innovation, that if we make a rigid framework, it doesn't allow innovation. But finding from the unique person the unique outcome means that it is always a new innovative process. Every child is unique, every person, you don't have similar top athletes. They are all different. So there are open skills that we have to provide. Some, or probably majority, is learned in informal way, but some basics should be given in a formal way. And the definition of coach is, I think, the starting point. And now it seems that society starts to question, who is the coach? We more or less know, but they start to ask the same question.
Question for Agata, that sport in Europe is very, very insular, sport for sport's sake. If we are talking about developing coaches, where do we want coaches to go, what impact coaches can make, advising on whether you do a dual career, whether you learn maths or whether you learn the overall picture. What impact, or how should sport look at how it can help other areas within Europe? I'm thinking about employment, the actual standard of living. Is that some area that the council's interested in?
First, I will make a comment about the definition of coaches. I think this is a task for the Estonian Presidency a bit as well, because you are preparing the council conclusions, and Kairis is already looking at me. But I think it's a good moment to start talking about this, and a bit about the changes of the role of a coach. I think it's a very natural process, because the market is different. There are different expectations. We have different young people. We have people with a bit older who still want to practice sports. So that's why we need to place and we need to educate coaches in a proper way. And about those, I would say, cross-sectoral cooperation. Maybe I will rephrase your question a bit to help myself, because I don't know the answer. But like this, I can answer something at least. I think it's very difficult to cooperate. I don't know if you have the same experiences, but the level of policy making, cooperating between even education and sport, it's already very difficult. You were speaking about recognition. Well, what is interesting that when we speak about teachers, the only one which are not, let's say, still underestimated are the PE teachers, so the physical education teachers. The maths, I don't know, languages, they are a bit higher in the level of being a teacher. And why? And because sport is still treated as a bit, I don't know. We don't talk about it. It's something for fun. I think we should first try to cooperate in this intersectoral thinking, go this way, and try to make other sectors understand employment, what you mentioned, education. Try to show them that sport is one of the policy itself, but as well it can be a tool when we speak about education, when we speak about employment. I don't know if I answered more or less, but
it's a hard question. Anyway. You can't say a yes or no, but.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that, taking just the last example, that the car doesn't become a car after a crash, but the coach seems to become coach after a crash or several.
Yeah. Well, we talk about the recognition of coaches. It's actually the recognition of the sector and the importance that the sector plays. I think that one thing that staggers me is that the actual, I think, gross domestic product within Europe of the sports sector is higher than agriculture and fishing. Yet what recognition and what effort is put into promoting the sports sector within Europe compared to the other two sectors? It's it's not just recognition for coaches; it's recognition for the whole sector. Is something that needs to be addressed. And until the sector gets the recognition, it will be difficult to get the coaching recognition. However, we've just got less than 10 minutes, so probably an opportunity to open up questions from the floor. I think there's microphones coming down.
Yeah, hello, Volker Helmund. I'm the director of the EOC office in Brussels, European Olympic Committee's office. First of all, thanks a lot for all your presentations, and I think in the last 2 days we had a lot of very good, interesting presentations here. So I'm happy that I could attend. I think there are so many points that could be discussed. One is the last one, Guy, that is the question of recognition. And what I thought yesterday when we discussed with Roy Hodgson mainly about professional coaches, I had the feeling that there's a major problem with regard to the perception of coaches that is only related to sporting success. And he has explained that as well. And the best example for me was when Pep Guardiola was at Bayern Munich. And he had a big clash with the medical team, with the famous Dr. Müller-Wohlfahrt, a real expert and high decorated doctor, because he claimed that the players are too long absent after injuries. And Wohlfahrt was sacked in a way. And that was for me a very bad example when we are talking about what kind of responsibility for the health of players a coach has. And but on the other hand, Guardiola is a coach probably most appreciated in international football. And coming to to another point, that is the point of facts and figures. Thomas had with the sport register, I think, an excellent example. You have raised that as well. And I think that is really crucial when we are complaining about how sport is regarded, that we work on this sport satellite accounts, that we really provide figures. We learned that, for example, if you look on the European Union with the funding of this via the structural funds. So we had so much problems to convince our national governments that sport should be part of the financing via the structural funds for sport infrastructure, for educational activities. And without these kind of figures that we can show how much sport is contributing to employment, to GDP, we will never succeed. And I think that is very important that these points or this work on sport registered on the sport satellite accounts really continues, that we have something how we can promote the sports. So it was more a comment and really appreciation of this, what has been done, and what Agatha has said. I think it's very important to go on with this kind of work because otherwise we will never be in the situation to compete with culture and other sectors.
Yeah, listening to that statement and way question, actually, if you go back to Jose's slide on the iceberg, actually, what most people see about sport is very little.
It's the definition.
It's the pinnacle, it's the elite, and a lot of that can be bad stories. The stuff that's going on in the UK with regards cycling and coaching and not looking after athletes, or Pep Gabriola and the doctor. And actually the showcase for sport doesn't necessarily show the better side of sport, and it is like an iceberg at times. And it's maybe the thing that the Commission or the EU can help with is actually telling the good stories, because actually that's 0.0% of what actually goes on and what the coach delivers.
Yeah, Volker, thank you for the comments. You remind me that we made one analysis about sports organizations as taxpayers. And we found that sports organizations paid to the government approximately the same amount of money if the central government gave to sport. It means we are not only donors, we are also recipients.
Another question?
Hi, yeah, good morning to you. My name's Dave Wosley from the UK. I now live in Estonia. And I've got sort of two backgrounds, really. I was a daddy coach, just like you mentioned there. Very much grassroots for 6 years. It consumed my life, coaching a football team from under 7s to under 12s in the UK. I moved to Estonia about 7 or 8 months ago. But also my background is law enforcement. I was a special investigator of child abuse in the UK, and therefore conducted many investigations involving the abuse of children, which sadly in some cases was in the sporting context with sporting coaches. And whether or not I was a daddy coach or you're an elite coach, one thing to bear in mind is that you are charged with working with the most vulnerable members of our society. And I was really interested to hear about the toolkit and the formal education. We've got three, we've got Portuguese, Estonian, and from a UK perspective. How currently embedded into your educational system of your coaches is the issue of child protection and safeguarding? For example, do your coaches get specific training around what is abuse, what the types of abuse, how to respond, how to mitigate the risk of harm to children they're charged with protecting? Thank you.
In Estonian, we of course, because the university gives majority of the lectures, we have the pedagogical aspect, and this is built in some way. But we don't have the experience of the serious crises, so probably we are missing some parts of it. So, but again, we are open to develop it, and probably sadly without the crisis, somebody will say, why should I learn these awful things? So again, it is emerging phenomenon.
In Portugal, we have some cases we know, and probably there are much more that we don't know. But I want to turn back to the question of the common language and of the recognition of the profession. A strong part of a really recognized profession is the ethical side of it. And in coaching, we still are very aware of having a committee for ethics. And for me, common language means not the Esperanto. The Esperanto has failed because probably it was against the nature of culture. But what I want is something like this. If you go and read the programs for educating coaches, South Africa, United States, Portugal, Japan, you don't see so many differences. The common language is that. So we can have a common understanding about the main problems of a profession all around the world, and to start here in Europe. It seems to be easier in Europe, but sometimes it's much more difficult than in other continents. So let's focus. I've heard, excuse me, let's try to define what is a coach. You have here the definition. We don't need to work much more on that. I'm a very pragmatic guy. As a coach, we need solutions, and solutions that work. So let's put together a couple of ideas concerning coaching activities, and the topic of this panel was also about skills and competencies. We are talking about a lot of things and very few about skills and competencies, but no problem with that. But this is one of the reasons why we are so away of having good solutions, because everybody speaks different languages. For instance, I don't agree with the concept of sports for all. And here it starts a big battle. It's not the moment for it. I speak about sport and physical activity, and that's all. It's the language of the United States. It's the language of the university where I did my degrees. Sports for all, okay, but the confusion starts from there.
Okay. Agatha, you want?
I have just two quick, brief comments. One is I fully agree. Common, let's call it, I don't know, maybe common standards. This is for sure we can agree on this. And just to let you know that we'll launch at the beginning of next year, 2018, a group of experts who is supposed to focus on skills and link it to coaches, and hopefully the works of the group will finalize in a kind of standards or recommendations in this area. I just wanted to answer to the question that at the EU level, protection of children in the context of sport, young athletes, we already touched this topic, and there exist several documents in this area, and there are a few projects. Maybe later I can show you more or less where to find it. Even one of the Council of Europe, which is specifically focused on sexual harassment and topics linked to sport. So there are things, there are guidelines, and I think it's sometimes worth to have a look. But there are some things already existing.
Well, okay. I think our time's up. Our red light's flashing at the back, and I'm sure coffee's calling. So, unfortunately, no more time for any questions. But I'm sure everybody will be able to call up them while we get a coffee and ask any more questions if they've got it. But thank you very much. I'm sure you'll tell us what time you want people back in.
Thank you, Guy, and I appreciate you sticking in the time. So we have now a coffee break, which is a bit shortened. It's 20 minutes, which means we will be back here, not here, and also on the 7th floor at 11:35. So the conference is continuing in two separate groups. One of them, Women and Coaching, is here in the same room, and the second, performance-oriented coaching, is on the 7th floor. I'm sure you pointed it out in which group you want to participate when you signed up the application, and please be aware that on the 7th floor there is no translation to Estonian.
Ladies and gentlemen, are there any gentlemen in the room? Indeed, some are. And welcome to those who follow us via live stream. So welcome to the session Women and Coaching. And I'm very happy and very honored to have you here as listeners, and also hopefully actively participating in this discussion. Why do we even focus on this topic? So we will have two very nice presentations, I can assure you, and we will have very up-to-date information that is regards to the situation in the EU regarding women and coaching. So let me invite our speakers up here on the stage. So Yves Lelostak, the head of sport unit at the European Commission. Yeah, round of applause would be nice. Yes, indeed. And Heidi Pekkola from European Sports Non-Governmental Sports Organization.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and contribution. And as a start, I'm Elina Kivinuk. I work officially in the Anti-Doping Agency, but this session has nothing to do with integrity in that sense. There is no danger or damage done, not yet. But my background is sports psychology, and being like female coach, these topics and these issues have been very close to my heart for some time. So I've organized some sports psychology trainings and like training sessions for the female coaches, and it has been quite an intriguing topic, I must say, especially in Estonia. And that is the first kind of opening question for you as well, for both of you. And it's a simple question: why bother? I mean, it's yesterday we had the first in the first session we had the question that where are the women coaches, and the topic was raised, and we heard from the German Olympic Committee that there are like 20% of female coaches in Germany. In Estonia, the percentage is a bit better, but still, if there would be like a person coming in the street and you say that female coaches are the most important topic in the world, so what would be your argument, or why would you consider it as an important topic? Heidi, do you want to, or I'm sorry, yeah.
Whatever, yeah. Yeah, difficult questions to start. I will say that I will use something which was said yesterday by one of our speakers, Sergio, I think, who was saying that we're just losing talents with the present situation. Maybe what I'm sorry for this, will not be very politically correct, but I'm not sure that women are better coaches than men, and they are not worse. I think it's a question of individuality. They are as good and as they can be as bad as men. So if we apply statistics, we should have more or less 50% women, which is not the case. So my only single observation is that this situation shows that there are a lot of talents in the streets, in the sport centers, in the conference rooms, which are not used, and there are potentially very good coaches, women coaches, which are not practicing their talent just because of this unbalanced situation. So this would be my answer: loss of talents, and this was a quotation of one colleague of yesterday's presentation. So.
Thank you for referring to yesterday, and also like being politically incorrect. I think it's kind of opening the ground for the sincere and honest discussion. Thank you for that. Heidi.
Thanks a lot, first of all, for inviting me. And actually, I was planning to say exactly the same thing. We didn't coordinate our replies, so now I need to come up with something else. I will come up to some of the reasons also in my presentation, but exactly this main thing that if women are more or less 50% of the inhabitants or the people in general, but we have much less female coaches, potentially we lose some talent, most likely. And I would just want to continue that, especially when sport is about being the best, finding the best talents, then maybe there is actually like some talent really missed there to be even finding the better coaches. And I totally agree that women as such are not maybe like better coaches, but there are maybe individuals who are better coaches than some men. And this is exactly the issue that I would also want to raise.
So you are also politically incorrect.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't think actually that this is politically incorrect. I think it's this is what equality actually is about in the end.
Thank you for that. Do you have a comment on the statistics as well? Like, is there a reason for Estonians to be proud that there is like a slight over 40% of female coaches? And what to say to the Germans that they have just 20%? Do you have any comments on this statistical viewpoint as well, Lori?
Regarding the numbers, of course that's really good to hear that you have so good percentages and having female coaches. Then I would maybe go a bit or want to see a bit more detailed statistics, that how is it then regarding, for instance, high-level coaching, or like women coaching men. I think then there maybe we can then see maybe some more inequalities in the statistics.
I will just add that the single fact that we have more and more statistics, it's already good. There are national statistics that you are mentioning. More and more at EU level, we want to have also data, statistics as a tool to make the situation improve. So the situation is as the one you described. It's not good. I have the tendency to think that it is improving too slowly, but it is improving. And what we are doing at EU level with our exercise of collecting data and statistics is really a tool to help not only ourselves, but also member states and sport organizations to improve and to check regularly what is the progress made.
Thank you. Maybe that is already a good way to give the floor to you, to yourself, to present the latest information, latest data that the European Commission has on the issue of women in coaching. And you have also the recent study, I understand, that you want to share. Yeah. So okay. You're very welcome.
Thank you. So I move here. Okay, so maybe I will need some technical assistance. We will see. So, let me start just without coming to my subject by really thanking the Estonian Presidency, Mr. Minister, for just their method, your working method, because I think it's a very good idea to prepare the works that you are going to do in the council, and there will be important works on coaching by such seminars, by such initiatives. When you listen to people, when you listen to sport organizations, because I think it's a very good way and it's a very practice to come to involve people in the work, in the decision-making process, which is going to happen in the coming months. So. My presentation, once more I will not be very disciplined, and Heidi knows me now, but I had one task today, it's to present a study, and I will enlarge a little bit my presentation to speak to you basically about two things, because I will take this opportunity also to say more or less, to explain more or less what we do at EU level for gender equality in sport, in particular for coaches, and then I will say a little bit more about the study. So let's push the button so it works. Okay. Gender equality in sport is a subject what we have started to tackle maybe more seriously some years ago. And it was a period when Commissioner Vassiliou, the Cypriot commissioner, was in charge. She had a personal involvement in sport, and in particular, she had a particular interest in gender equality in sport. And that is why she put in place a group of experts in gender equality issues with the task to prepare EU proposals for strategic actions on gender equality. So groups of experts made an in-depth work, I must say, during months and months, and a report, let's say, call for action was adopted at the end, if I remember well, now I'm making conclusion, but beginning of 2014, yeah. More or less at the same time, these works undertaken by the Commission were taken on board also by the Council and by the Presidency, and it was the time of the Greek Presidency, and the Greek Presidency made, I think, a very good work of sensibilization, having Council conclusions adopted, and these Council conclusions were adopted in May 2014. And so there was some information, interesting information and interesting orientation in this council conclusions. Some things which are evident, that women are underrepresented in many areas of sport, as shown also by our Eurobarometer studies in the Commission, that precisely the number of women in leadership positions, including coaching, was too little, that there were some problems also which are more and more known on gender-based violence in sport, that we had to fight against gender stereotypes. So these were part of the most important findings that we would have in these council conclusions. And we could say that these years, 2013-14, were really key in starting the process of working more on gender equality at EU level. And I will add a third thing. Some of you about the works done in the framework of the EU Work Plan for Sport. Some of you know about this instrument. The EU Work Plan for Sport is an instrument conceived at EU level. It's a council resolution. Technically, it's a council resolution. And more or less, it's an agreement between member states and the Commission in order to work on certain topics, on priorities, let's say, during the 3 years to come. There were 3 EU work plans for sport. The first one was adopted in 2011, second one in 2014, and the last one was just adopted under some months ago under the Maltese presidency. And gender equality has been a concern in this EU work plan, in particular in the second one, because we have an expert group which has been put in place, composed by member states with observers from sport organizations and with the Commission, of course, attending, which adopted recommendations on gender equality. And the recommendations of gender equality adopted in 2016 were in line with the policy documents I was mentioning before. So we need more girls participating in sport. We need gender balance in decision making in sport. We need more gender equality in coaching. We need to fight against gender violence in sport, and we need to fight stereotypes in sport. So really a convergence of messages to convey. So what can we do? But maybe I will comment a little bit later on the study. There are tools certainly that we can use at EU level to promote, to encourage and support women in sport and in coaching, in particular in terms of awareness raising, in terms of education, training, monitoring, in terms of using role models, practices, processes, in terms of access to opportunities. There are political tools, and there is also an instrument. I will just spend 1 minute on this, but it's worth mentioning it. We have one financial instrument, which is Erasmus+. And from time to time, there is a confusion. We spoke a lot since the beginning of this conference about Erasmus+, but you know now it's clear that Erasmus+ is not only about education, it's not only about mobility or exchange of students, it's much larger than that, and there is now a sport part in Erasmus+, with a substantial budget, I would say, with a specific sport chapter of 1.8%, and with a system years after years where we launch calls for proposals, and we receive applications, and we have the possibility to support projects. And this program is clearly open to the topic of gender equality in sport, including coaching, and you have under your eyes a priority for 2017 for this year. You see clearly that equal opportunities is a priority of the program, with the possibility to finance substantially projects up to 400,000 euros for a European project. And you will see also, and this was mentioned before by my colleague Agata, that for the first time ever, there is in Erasmus Plus Sport a part more focused on the second part, education, training in sport, with a special focus on skills developments, and coaching is clearly part of this priority. So we have tools also to help. So we don't only speak and comment, we can support projects. And now let's come to my subject, the study. But precisely, I will not be able to say too much on the study. Why? Because this study is not yet adopted, it's not yet published. It will be the case in a couple of weeks. It will be open to everybody, largely spread. But today I will be, let's say, general, because we are in the final process, and you know it, as we are discussing the final findings with the consultant. There could be some slight modifications. We never know. So today I will limit myself to some general comments, and one of them is that it is also a Commission's contribution to the work of the Estonian Presidency on coaching. This was the spirit of this study. We wanted to help. It will be up to the Presidency to draw conclusions on this and to use it or not. Hopefully yes. But this is typically the sort of thing that the Commission can do in assisting a presidency to reach its objectives. So why the statistics? You mentioned the figures. According to our old figures, because they date back to 3 years, 20%, 30% of all sport coaches in Europe are women, and the proportion even reduces in higher level coaching roles. So coming back to this study was also let's say suggested by the expert group's recommendations on gender equality, so by member states as a whole, who are asked to initiate and support research which identify situations that promote and counteract equality and equal treatment in coaching and coach education. So in a way what the Estonian Presidency is doing and what the Commission is doing is also supported by member states, because they asked for it, and I think this is a very good basis for our works in the months to come. So the aims of the study are very clear: evaluate existing formal and non-formal training and education schemes for coaches in view on their gender equality elements, evaluate their modules on gender equality, and identify good practices with regards to accessibility for women and gender equality models, and identify good practices and spread them, of course. I will not say too much on the process, but the study has looked at accessibility for women, so flexible timetabling, childcare support during trainings. They have looked at modules. Are there specific modules on gender equality? Progression. What are the education training opportunities targeted at progression for women? Mentoring, role models, how can we use them? Marketing, and we found in the study at least one example was identified. Scholarships, and the study looked also at the issue of access. There are programs where only women can attend, and there are programs where a certain proportion of places are allocated to women. So methodology, I will not spend time on this, and I will, not to take too much time, I will finish in in the coming 2 minutes in giving you some of the main conclusions of the study. In total, 36 coaching education programs with a gender dimension have been identified across 13 countries. I'm not sure, I'm even sure it's not exhaustive, because it was a short-term study, let's say more a short-term consultancy. It was not a very, let's say, as we have from time to time, 1 year, 2 year research on a topic. It was really a research on a very short period in order to help just to arrive before the main period of the Estonian presidency. So it's not as broad as it could have been, but it gives us also some good elements. We see also that women-only programs is the most common approach, that there are limited examples of accessible education activities for women, more flexible timetabling, I say, childcare schemes, and there are limited examples of programs with models on gender equality, but examples show potential to address discrimination issues. In the study, you will see, or you will see in the future, that there are examples, there are good practices which are mentioned on the slides that will be probably spread. There are a couple of them. I will not comment all of them, but the first one is interesting because it touches Estonia, where there are some success, it seems, in relating to the rise of female coaches in Estonia, and this can be attributed to involvement and commitment of high-profile coaches from the Estonian Football Association. So you will find also good examples in Netherlands, in Finland, Scotland also. This is really worth looking. You will have really analysis on some good practices in many, not many, but in 12, 13 member states, France, Norway, also UEFA, a very good example, also on a very good initiative taken by UEFA. So this you will find in the study in a couple of weeks probably, or of days if things go well. Now to conclude, key reflections. So the main thing really is that the case study suggests that women-only courses have worked well, where the numbers of women coaches are starting from a low base, and particularly where the confidence of women to take up coaching has been influenced by the perception that coaching is a male-dominated profession. However, some federations prefer a quota-based approach, as it is regarded as more beneficial for women to take part in mixed programs as they progress. So I will not go through all the key reflections, but really it's worth having a look, and because it will feed our common reflections. My last, and now it's really my conclusion, it's to say that this has been, or this will be, a Commission's contribution to the debate. It is a long-term process. As I said at the beginning, we consider that the trend is not bad, it is too slow. Clearly, we must all together do better. And the EU, this is typical, something typical of what the EU can do. We will certainly not solve the problem. We have not the pretension or the arrogance to do that we can solve it, but we can help. We can contribute. We can contribute to with such studies. We can contribute to financial support, and it's only, let's say, a contribution in a field where many actors have a role to play, and but really we are in this field in particular, which is a priority for us. We are really with the mood and the will to help and to contribute. I will finish with this, not to be too long. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the good and interesting presentation. We would look forward to the study as it will be published. And I think this is a good topic to build a bridge into the training and learning of coaches, as we had this similar topic covered in the morning session. So do female coaches learn differently? Did you find something like specific there in the study, in the preliminary? I know that you cannot share too much, but still, if there is. And Heidi, if you have anything to add regarding the female coaches training and the specifics.
Do they learn differently? Do you ask me the question as a EU representative or as a person?
We decided in the beginning already that it's politically correct.
So as a EU representative, I would say that we have no idea on this. This is not our competence to comment on this. It's not our role. As a person, as I would say at the beginning, that my view is that more, okay, I know that there is a lot of debates about the female or the women sensitivity specific approach. Maybe, maybe not. But I like very much what Madame Kirsti from Finland was saying yesterday, saying that herself as a woman, she has completely changed approach after a couple of years. So this was not, I would say that this is a personal own behavior. Is there a specific way of women to train or to learn or to teach? I'm not as a person 100% convinced, but this is only my little approach of the question. So.
And I guess we will learn more from the different experiences, different examples from the study as it will be published. Yes.
Sure.
Heidi, do you have anything to add regarding the learning?
Yeah, I would say that I don't think that women learn differently as such, but what was also a bit raised yesterday is that, and what also Eve said, that as women are not so many in the area of coaching, and coaching is still seen as quite male-dominated profession or a role. This, of course, is like it's not easy to come in, and maybe in that you need certain specific support and also gaining the confidence of being there. It's not easy to be the only woman there, or like entering an area, for instance, if there are training sessions which are that you are the only woman and the others are like 80 men. So in these kind of things, I think maybe some special support is needed.
And I've heard also that mentoring and this kind of peer learning is very common in the female coaches' approach, how they support each other and how the self-confidence could be raised.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the participants, audience? Maybe regarding the presentation or generally regarding the support of female coaches? If not, we could maybe move on to the next presentation, and Heidi will present intriguing SCORE projects.
Yes, indeed. Thanks a lot for the possibility to present this project. So it's also Erasmus finance project, and as Eve mentioned, Erasmus Plus as one of the tools to also touch this area. This is one of the examples. I would like to start with the picture. So asking you that who is the woman in the picture, who knows? Eve cannot reply because he has heard this presentation earlier, and I think he knows the answer. Yes, that's correct. So it's Judy Murray, and it fits perfectly with the timing as we are coming into the finals of Wimbledon this week. So she's the mother of Andy Murray. And I use this as as an example, the case of Andy Murray and also Judy Murray, because Andy Murray was long time coached first by his mother. Then he's been also coached by Amélie Mauresmo, former tennis player, which gained a lot of media attention. And actually, I would just want to show a video which happened this week in the press conference of Wimbledon when Andy Murray got knocked out from the from the last games and didn't get to the semi-final, and he made a good comment which also reflects a bit the issue.
Andy, Sam is the first U.S. player to reach a major semi-final since 2009. How would you describe...
Male player.
I beg your pardon?
Male player, right?
Yes, yeah. First male player. That's for sure.
To defend the singles title, I think Venus and Serena have won about 4 each.
So this is like some comments which also show a bit the how also the coaching is many times seen, and in general some of the issues in sport. Regarding Andy Murray, as mentioned, he has raised this issue a lot because he was so shocked when he really hired Amélie Mauresmo to coach him about the comments that were made in media. Whenever he won, it was because he played so well, he was excellent. Whenever he lost, it was the fault of having a female coach. That why is he having a female coach, that this is causing the problems and the game is not going well. He has also raised a lot of the issue that he likes to be coached by women, or he has really good experiences because he thinks that the soft skills, which were also raised yesterday in some of the panels, that actually he has had better experiences with female coaches in those. In his experience, for instance, he's better listened by the female coaches, and he can have more this discussion where he can also share his opinions. However, I agree with Eve that I don't think as such like women are better coaches, but maybe because of the roles that what women still have in the society, like being mothers or the first ones to take care of primarily in the families, maybe they are raised more in that way that they need to listen. It's also the issue that if a young girl is saying her opinion really strongly, many times she hears that she's a bossy or like a really annoying person, whereas if a young boy does that, then it's just showing some leadership skills. But yeah, some of these issues came up also in our project, and this was one of the issues why we wanted to also touch this topic. SCORE project, as mentioned, was financed by Erasmus+, and it was 2 years project. We finished by the end of last year. ENGSO, so European Non-Governmental Sports Organization, which I'm representing, was leading this project. We had a good partner network, also many of the organizations being represented here. So we had Sports Coach UK, Finnish Coaching Association, International Council for Coaching Excellence, which Sergio was representing yesterday, as partners, bringing really the coaching expertise and the gender equality topics from their experience, what they have faced in coaching. On top of that, we had a lot of national partners from different countries, mainly our member organizations like German Olympic Committee, Swedish Sports Confederation, Lithuanian Union of Sports, Croatian Olympic Committee, and so on. So it was a wide partner network, and we went around and got some good examples from different countries, but also organized training sessions around Europe. So the objective was really clear, to look the reasons what there are behind that, why there are not more female coaches, and really to aim increase in all levels the number of female coaches, whether it is on the grassroots level and more like the voluntary coaches, or in the high level as employed coaches coaching top level sports. Some of the reasons are same, some of the things are different, and it was also really interesting as we had quite a wide network and we went around different countries, that having, for instance, Sweden, which is maybe considered one of the most gender equal countries in the world, and then having like countries like Cyprus or Croatia, the discussion was a bit different, whereas maybe in Cyprus there hadn't been earlier so much discussion at all on the topic, whereas in Sweden gender equality has been discussed a lot, but still even in Sweden the issue is that there's not really on the top level, there's not a lot of female coaches, and same also like not really having a lot of women coaching men. The actions that we did were an educational toolkit, and I have put some of the hard copies, which is actually this kind of a lanyard, and if I can open this, actually here is a USB stick. So the whole toolkit material is there. You can, the first ones can take it from there, but it's also on the website, so I will show the link to the website so all of you can have a look. And I will go into details more like what is in the toolkit. However, this toolkit is really targeted to sports federations and sports organizations. That what are the issues that sports organizations can do to make their coaching more gender equal, and also looking into the barriers that what there are for female coaches, because in the end it's a lot about the structures. Of course you need to also empower women, but it's also a lot about the structures, that there are some issues that actually hinder women to get into coaching, or at least to get to the higher levels. The second action was education of mentors. So altogether we educated 22 mentors. I will tell a bit more about it later. And they are now mentoring, as mentoring was said one of the tools around Europe, female coaches. We had national training sessions in 8 countries, and you can see the countries there. And as mentioned, the situations are quite different in these countries, and it was really interesting to see and discuss with the people from the federations that what are the issues in each given country. Altogether, we had 107 federations who participated in these training sessions, and 163 delegates from different sports backgrounds. This answers also the question that, why more female coaches are needed? So what is the business case behind the need for more female coaches? Some of the things have been said. The skills issue, that if 50% of the population is women, but they are much more underrepresented in the coaching, maybe we lose some skills. And as mentioned, in the end, sport is about finding the best skills. Maybe this could be really beneficial to the sports organizations to also check that what are the skills, skilled women who could be good in coaching. Another issue is like more choice, because we people, we tend to stick to the same kind of people, and of course sports organizations want to get more members. They want to grow and have more people to participate. If your coach, if you're a young girl and your coach is a 60-year-old man, maybe that's not so easy to start to participate. Maybe it's easier to come in if it's young woman who is coaching you, So this having more choice gives actually a good benefit for the sports organizations to get more participants and more athletes to come in. And it's not only about women, but also like in general, people from different backgrounds in coaching workforce. This also brings economic benefits. Well, having more participants, having more members, you have also more income. Of course, this all relates to the cultural change which needs to be done, and it's not easy, but having different kind of people there is important. It was also mentioned in yesterday's panel that there is a lot of research now about it, that companies which have more diverse boards, which have also women, which have members from different age groups or different backgrounds, actually they tend to perform better. This links with that then you get different aspects to take into account. So this is a bit broader reply to why do we need also women in coaching. Also, just continuing a bit with statistics, using Sweden as an example, because I think it's quite interesting example. And Sweden, as mentioned, is one of the countries maybe with the highest gender equality in the world. Sweden got 11 medals in Rio. 8 of them were won by female athletes. Okay, might be just coincidence. Then 5 of these 11 medals were won by athletes coached by female coaches. So Sweden actually had quite some female coaches in Rio. Or not so many in terms of numbers, but in terms of success, yes. Because then when we look the next one, Sweden had 4 female head coaches, and actually 3 of them came back with medal. Their athlete got a medal. And actually 4 of them, so all of them, 100% came home with a top 6 result or better. And again, I'm not saying, and I don't want to say, and it's about stereotypes, that women would be better coaches, but I think this links maybe with that as it's not so easy as a woman to get as a head coach or get to the high level, you need to be really good. You need to be super good, and maybe, I don't know, but I would maybe tend to think that it's more linked to that actually the women who get over these structures to the head coach's place, they are actually really good coaches. A couple of words more about the toolkit. So as mentioned, it's targeted for sports organizations, and there are 4 main areas what sports organizations can do around planning, recruiting, developing, and then retaining female coaches. Then there is some additional information with good practice examples from different countries. Regarding planning, the issue is just to have a strategic approach. Nothing happens if you have, we all know that if you have one action there and another action there, you really need to plan and have a strategic approach how to improve this issue. Some of the issues around recruiting are also quite interesting because many times still the recruiting processes are not so transparent and open. And this actually tends to be in disfavor for women. Because again, when we know somebody, we know that, okay, there is this person, maybe he would be good to coach here. Then we speak to him, and it's not maybe something that then we would think that maybe this woman could be also a good one. So the recruiting processes should be as transparent and as open as possible. The other issue is also related to recruiting is a bit the self-confidence gap. Like women tend to, there is some research around it that men tend to apply a job 7 years before they are ready for that, and women tend to apply 7 years after they are ready for that. And if there is an announcement and a woman sees that and there is like 10% of the things that she's like, okay, I don't maybe have this, this knowledge or this experience, women tend to focus on that, whereas men tend to focus on the things that they even though there would be only 40% where their experience fits, they will focus on that. So it's called like a confidence gap, and I think again it's more related to the fact how girls and boys are raised and grown up. Not so much, I don't think that it's something which is like when we are born, but it's more about the roles that the women and men still in general have in societies. Regarding developing women, one of the issues, well, many have been said, and I think like one of the issues that Eve also raised, that should there be the trainings organized that they are women-only courses. At least in what we found and my opinion, like at least try to avoid that there is only one woman in a group. That's not really an easy situation to get training. The issues around retaining women, many were also mentioned already, are around, for instance, the issues around the family policies, having maternity leaves if needed, or how is the job related, can you take your family with you if you have children, and having these kind of structures from the employer side to support women in coaching. So please have a look on the toolkit, take the hard copy or have a look on the website. Then the other action that we did was the education for mentors. This is more related to support female coaches by mentoring. And I want to stress that we didn't only educate female mentors, we had also men as mentors. And in this, I would want to really underline the role of men. And I'm really happy to see, I was a bit afraid when this session was named as Women and Coaching, that will I have only like maybe 20 women here. But I'm really happy to see so many men here as well, because we need men like Andy Murray, who raised this issue. We need campaigns like UN's He for She, which I think many of you know. Because in the end, men are many times at the moment in those places where you can decide, or the decision-making positions. So we also had really good male participants who are now supporting female coaches who want to advance in their career. The good thing is that especially in Germany and Finland, this is now really systemized. Our partners there have continued to work on this, and they have mentoring systems. In Germany, it's coordinated by German Olympic Committee, and in Finland, it's the Finnish Coaches Association. So it's really good to have this sustainability by organized board focusing on this issue. Here is the group of mentors from the education. First part of the education, we had 2 sessions, and in between of these sessions, they already started to mentor and have the questions. Then, when they come for the second session, what were the issues that were raised when they started to mentor female coaches? This is in a nutshell what I wanted to say. So the website where you can find the toolkit is there. On social media, there is still something going around with the hashtag #ScoreCoaching, and there is also a Facebook site for SCORE. There are also some of these flyers there behind where you can also find the website, so you can check then the toolkit. And you can always, of course, contact me. Thanks a lot for listening, and yeah, if there's any questions, I am happy to reply.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed the holistic approach that you have within the projects, that you look at the individual approach and like especially the mentoring and supporting the individuals, but you also have this, you look at the structural viewpoint as well, that you look at the organizations. Are there any questions amongst the audience? Yes, there are. I see one. Can we provide the microphones? Here. Can we provide the microphones quickly? I think it's working.
Yes. I'm Laura Capranica from the European Athlete Student Network, but I'm also the president of Master Program in Sport Coaching at the University of Rome for Italico. And in Italy, we are facing a more Mediterranean approach to coaching. So the gender issue is not even taken into consideration. There is no gender, there is just one. So there is no problem. No, it's true. And as well as you, I usually am very curious at the beginning of each academic year in looking at the proportion. How many female students I have in class on men, even though we don't have any gender discrimination approach. Actually, this is not the case, and I'm trying to support the women in sport. But one thing is, thanks because the number help us in figuring out the whole picture and maybe asking for changes, for sure. But then there is another question, whether at a European level we can refer to, I'm not saying quota, but recommendation on a better gender equality, not a female representation, a gender equality in this aspect. And the other thing, and then I want just to give a suggestion, to have a sort of observatory or let's say open here office on individual cases. Just to give an example, one of my former students was engaged at soccer level from a very important team, first league, and then there was a big problem because there was no female locker room. So there was the referee locker room, but not the female locker room. So she was immediately fired because there was no locker room for her. So she called me and she said, to whom shall I refer? And say, oh, good question. So I'm posing this question to you.
Thank you for these examples, sharing these examples. And I'm not sure if you can respond regarding the locker room, but probably you can also, but you can comment like in more general view.
Yeah. Okay, I can I at least give one or two initial reactions, because one part of the question was about the reference to EU documents and guidelines and orientations. Yes, of course, I think this exists. I mentioned some of them. This is a priority not only for the Commission but at the EU. This is endorsed by member states as a whole. So the policy documents exist. In the field of sport, there is a permanent question, but this is the nature of the competence of the EU in the field of sport, that we can invite, recommend, coordinate, cooperate, help, but we cannot impose. And we are in a field where most of the answers is in sport organizations, and we try to help, to accompany, to push with the limitation of our competences. But clearly, yes, there are very clear political message in this direction. Concerning the specific case you were mentioning, is there a central office or something like that at EU level on this? So the answer is no. But there are rules, there are laws against fight against discrimination. But also I can imagine that the answer can be also just a local court if a law has been breached. This is part of the answer, and there are also complaints which can be launched in certain cases by the Commission if there are also breach of EU law. But I cannot say more about a very specific issue that we all regret. Of course, so these are my initial reactions. So.
Thank you. Hey, did you want to comment?
Yeah, just this locker room issue is a good example of exactly like how structures can easily then make it more difficult for women to be in coaching. So these are exactly the kind of things that we addressed also in this project. And there has been like some female coaches who have been coaching male teams, and as locker room is really the place where many times many of the speeches to motivate the team are done. This is exactly, either you need to be a so strong woman that you just go there and you don't care about and you do your speech and that's the thing, or you find other places where you do this issue. So this is a good example exactly on this, how the structures, that how things around coaching or in sport in general have formulated over the many years, and these kind of things exactly to maybe open a bit the eyes that what can be done for these issues.
Yeah, that reminds me, I had a kind of playful idea recently that I'm being a great movie lover, and do you know that in the movie business there is a Bechdel test? Do you know that there is a test that all movies can be rated according to the gender issues, and whether it passes the Bechdel test or not, so that there are 3 criteria, like you should rate every movie. And these criteria are so that the movie has to have at least 2 women in it, the first criteria. The second is the women need to talk to each other. And the third criteria is that the women need to talk to each other something else than guys. So, for example, the Pirates of the Caribbean doesn't pass the test because there are just 2 female characters with no names and not significant to the plot. While this Beauty and the Beast movie actually passes the test because there is this main character, Belle, teaching how to read to another girl. So this is a kind of interesting perspective that you, even if you love the movies, then you still have this kind of a looking glass that according to the gender perspective. And my idea was maybe we can do something also with the sports. I mean, because we saw that there are some sports that are really like women specific, that there are more women coaches, and we can maybe take this into account as a criteria, but maybe we could evaluate or give a kind of a mark to different sports or different sports federations, that how do they take into account, like how do they support women coaches, or how do they support their sports amongst the different gender in general. Do you have any comments on my crazy ideas?
Actually, I really love the idea, and first of all, like if you start to, because I know this test, and when you start to check the movies, it's really shocking how many movies don't pass this test. So it also tells a bit about the roles that what the women are given in general. Regarding role models, this is one issue that I didn't mention yet, but exactly like this is important, and also like placing female coaches as role models. For instance, just so practical things as having pictures, like in your publications, when you check them, when you have publications on coaching, do you have also like female coaches, or is it only the men who are there? Because you cannot be something if you don't know that that's possible. So for young women, if they only see like men as coaches in the like publications, then it's quite difficult to maybe even dream about it to be a coach. And for me, like there is one issue that I try to be quite strict, is that to have female speakers whenever I organize something or I'm involved in something. And actually, for me, it would be much better not to have this separate session on women and gender equality, but I would prefer that in the other session where there is like now high performance discussed, that there would be at least one female coach speaking about that topic. So these are like, for me, the tests, how to test that, is it really gender equal, and I hope that that these are more the things that we see in future also in the sports field.
Yeah, on this, thanks to you, is it working? Yes. Thanks to you, I discovered this test. I was not aware. So I discovered a lot during these 3 days in Estonia, I must say. And this was one of the things. So my reaction is that I liked the instrument. Is it as such transposable to what we're discussing? Probably not, but I like very much the idea of having such a, let's say, audit or auto-evaluation of what is being done. And in a way, we are working already on this. And I will mention very briefly 2 instruments. One of them was launched by Commissioner Navracic on the 15th of September last year. It's a good governance pledge board, when organizations measure what is the progress to be done in their governance in general, including gender equality, and they make commitments, voluntary commitments, and we see more and more precise commitment, and we check, we discuss with them regularly what is the progress made. So this is one tool I wanted to mention, and some of them are just some tools looking like this bed-shelled test are just launched by some sport organizations. The IOC is one of them, the European Olympic Committees. They have considered a certain a system through an Erasmus project, a system of auditing sport organizations that they can offer, where they test what are the weak points in terms of governance, and this is a good base to improve and to plan progress in the middle or the long term. So yes, I like the idea, and thank you for letting me know this thing. So,
thank you for these comments. Unfortunately, our time is getting very close, if not say that we have misused the time. Sorry for that. But that's also partly in purpose, so that those people who are interested in more high-level sports, that they also have to listen a little bit about the women coaches. I'm joking. So thank you for your time. Just to have a kind of a take-home message, I would say that we could be more aware, or more just looking with a wider look at these issues, and just maybe one action to take away from this session, that you could notice more these female sports people acting beside you within either your organizations or your places that you work currently. So thank you for your time, thank you for your question, and thank you, speakers, for your excellent presentations. Enjoy the rest.
Thank you, Elina. It was the moment when I wanted to clone myself, because I was participating the other session on the 7th floor, and then I came down here on the 2nd floor to participate this session too, and I can assure that both sessions were very interesting, and I hope you did the right choice. But now I see the people from the 7th floor are coming also down. Yeah. Good to see that the head of the Olympic Committee is organizing people to come in. Thank you, Siim. If the people are back on their places, we can continue. And we have only one speaker left of our conference. But before we move on, it's good to share again some moments from Estonian sport with you. As we said before, Estonia is very keen to achieve results. Doesn't matter, is it Olympic Games, is it World Championship, we always need to win something. Small country. The other thing we are very keen to do very well are organizing international events. This is something we have common with Finns. Finns also like to organize the events great, and I think in the world we are like competing with each other who can organize the best international sporting events. Here is the example how Estonians do it. So basically give us the competition and we make it great. Not great again, but just great. So it's time for our last speaker. And we come back to the beginning of the conference, the role of the coaches in society. And I'm honored to invite to the stage Raul Rebane, Estonian communication specialist. And he speaks about the social role of coach. Thank you.
The organizers of the conference put me in a very difficult position by two reasons. First of all, I'm probably the only amateur in this room, sports amateur. Last 23 years, sports has not been my profession, just hobby. Second, we have heard a lot of wonderful presentations here, a lot of insights, interesting discussion about the same subject. So what to do? What to give something new? So I chose the option that I will tell you very personal story about connection with sports, with coaches, with the coach's role in society. And you see already the title is a little bit provoking. So without further ado, let me start with the explanation. In my youth, I was not talented enough to be successful in sports, so I had to choose journalism. I had my moments. Look at the date, it's Tokyo World Championships 1991, and for this moment Estonia was independent probably 8 hours, so it's first foreign report of independent Estonia. But in 1994 I left sports, quit totally, and the reason was that I hated doping. And at that time, I believed that doping is some kind of necessary evil in sports, and I didn't want to spend the rest of my life promoting activities where success is connected to cheating. It's stupid, I know, but in this time, at that time, I believed. But all of a sudden, in 2000 May, a temptation came to come back to sports, and the reason is here. By coincidence, I met young man, Gert Kanter. To me, he seemed talented. The video is from '99, but he was 2000 same clumsy. By some reason, he was left alone, no help whatsoever. And when I put on a paper his situation, it was like that. No talent, in the coach's opinion, who didn't want him to take to Tallinn Sports Boarding School to play basketball. He was basketball fanatic. Later, nobody wanted to train him. Old, no money, no result, and no talent. After 2 months, psychological tests, hesitations, we started to work together. And after 5 years, after failures and problems, the picture was a little bit different.
Gert Kanter, this is what the noise was all about. Well, he's chasing a mark, 68-10 of Vahilias Elekna. This is the man that's thrown over 70 meters this year, the Estonian record holder, and gets that one perfectly. And over the yellow mark that signifies the lead mark. So over the 68-10 of Elekna. There's his coach, Vestin Hafsteinson. Kanter, awesome talent, tall, athletic, very strong. Still a youngster, has many years ahead of him in the sport, but really a talent. And that throw, 68 meters and 57 centimeters. There's Vestin.
So at the moment, the situation is like that. He is Olympic champion, world champion, 11 medals altogether. It's not bad for an untalented person. At the moment, in age 38, he's getting ready for his 8th World Championships in London, and the objective is very clear: to spit in a young boy's soup and try to win medal again. Now I would like to talk about some principles, what we followed to working with this young man, and about coach's role. First of all, we needed a coach, not a head coach, but the coach with head. And I found him from Iceland. His name is Vestin Hafsteinsson. Here are some his principles, how he's working. And Thorafur, thank you for Iceland, for this man. And without his help or work, Gert would never won these medals. And here, the first coaching principle. You see here the only signed document with Gert. It's 19th of December 2000, and it's not about money. It's question of honor. And it's about doping. And I have to say that I'm very happy we did it. Our team followed it from the very first second, and we can sleep at the moment soundly. And Estonian proverb says that money gone, little cost, little gone. Health gone, much lost. Honor gone, everything lost. So it's a question of honor. And the first and the most important principle is fair play. Famous Finnish basketball coach Henrik Detman said that the ethical leadership is a strong leadership. In 2014 to 2016, I carried out with the students tests which were based on the idea that people admire 3 very important principles: perceivable honesty, perceivable intellectuality, and perceivable expertise. Estonia is already in a position that the honesty is the main principle. If you don't have this, you don't have bother with others. Which means that this is the main principle. Fair play is always in the center. This is the main coach's work. And here, not in only sports, here you see the Estonian psychological defense model. Whatever the practical considerations are, the values that society agrees on are always in the center. And in sports, it's always in the center is fair play. Second, in 2001, we put the question, what is a discus rowers product? Stupid question, but it's not so easy to answer. It's not result. It's the target group emotions. If your result is not bringing people emotions, positive, negative, there is no product. Which means that this principle changed our lives. The people became important, not we ourselves. Your objective is to make others happy, not others to make you happy. Happy through hope and achievement. And the coach's role number 2, by my opinion, is image of achievement. Coach's product is to guide society towards achievement, make society believe in achievement. It's a little bit different than teacher's goal, which is actually healthy kid. Number 3, innovation. I think a lot of people probably don't agree what I am going to say now, but by my opinion, sports is not very innovative field of human activities. There is a perception that in sport there is a competition and it solves all problems. It doesn't. Doping is a good example. Doping stopped innovation in sports for 20 years or maybe more. And spoiled ideology. When ideology is wrong, everything is wrong. We think that sports has huge resources everywhere. Lifestyle, nutrition, sports-related research, science, methodology, and especially sports philosophy has resources, and here coaches have decisive role. Look our team structure. Pay attention to the third level. The first level, 6 or 7 people, they have everyday contact with the sportsman. Second level is the expertise level, nutrition, biomechanics, statistics, doctors, and so on. Third level is the intellectual or innovation level. This is 80 to 85 people who gave us constant information. They are people from different different fields, scientists, communication people, strategists, cultural people from different countries, mainly Nordic. For example, Viesten Hafstensson put or give me 30 names. He was constantly in contact. It was always fresh flow of information. And I would like to stress the importance of other fields people, their input to sports. We used it. Our team communication format. Look at the us means social role, but the main target group, women 40 plus. This is, I think, quite unique in sports. And why? Me as the TV sociology guy, I know that women 40 plus is most efficient communicative group in society. And they don't follow results, they don't follow medals. They follow personality, they follow values. If you have their support, it's huge. It's a totally unused group of extremely powerful people in sports. And not the doing sports, but how they value sports. Look what Viesten is doing. He said, I, as a coach, I do not know everything. I educate myself. I ask for help. This is the flow of information, new flow of information to the sports. Role number 4, teaching people how to dream, keeping idealism alive. I really think it's very important. There must be idealism in objectives. They can be never formulated in materialistic way. And here I bring one example from Estonia. And this is the coach's work in the best way. It's 10 Olympic starts. His television TV program together with the Athletics Union, and it has been 46 years. From 71, I was myself host in the 80s, 10 years. And altogether in these years, more than 200,000 kids participated in age 10 to 14. And there are Olympic winners, world champions, medal winners from European championships and so on. But maybe it's not most important. Most important that these kids, they 99% leave the program happy. They have good feelings. And they really appreciate what they see, how they participate. They're coming from some little South Estonian school. They are in Tallinn with the TV and everything, a lot of programs a year. And how it helps. You know, these kids who were in the first program, they are now almost 60. They have kids and grandchildren. Kids and children, they grow up. And now all these children are already in parliaments, in local governments, in culture, in business, in science. And they remember these feelings, and they want these feelings to their kids. And when there is a political voting, they vote for the happiness of their kids. We have in Estonia 7 or 8 indoor athletics halls on international level for 1.3 million people. It's for not very rich country, it's a lot. The people voted. And coaches, local coaches from the schools, from, I don't know, everywhere, it's hundreds, thousands during years. They have done a great job. They have kept alive this feeling of kids' happiness. And the influence is 2, 3, 4 steps influence. Very often these coaches even don't feel that what they are doing, but their real impact to society is huge. And this is the developing program. It's probably the longest continuous athletics TV program in the world. Now, well, I have to go back. Now it goes from student to the pupils, from father to the kids. 2 funny videos. Again. I have to go back, sorry. I was too fast. It's a Gert. His son, 2.5 years old, Christian, saw the competition, he did this. Teachers in kindergarten, they were surprised that so nice boys but throwing things and screaming, but so it goes. It's Olympic starts, it's father, son, mother, daughter thing, and it's very powerful, and this is really very strong coaching. But now we have 4 principles, 4 roles. I would like to add one more. Very near here, 300 meters, it's a Baltic railway station market. And in this market years ago, beginning 15 years ago, I saw a picture when they sold happy chicken eggs. And we had a problem how to catch others in 2001. They are far ahead. What to do? So idea came that when happy chicken is doing better eggs, I don't know what makes chicken happy, but it means that his egg-making process is happy. So we turned the idea that not result is important, but process is important. And it's vice versa, very strategy that don't tell me about process, give me result. No. Our idea is that if you make process happy, result is coming itself. It needs much more work. It needs much more care. It needs 24 hours. And this is the big role. Make process happy. And in the end, it's question of efficiency. Happy person is working much more efficient. And this is coming big role of the coach. You are very efficient. Society is very efficient when you are able to make process of work happy. And these are my 5 principles. And if you want to remember something from Tallinn seminar, just remember 2 words. Happy chicken, and you remember everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Do we have, I'm sure we have, some questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you, Raul. Risto Lepp from Estonian. I'm an Estonian handball coach. Raul, you have done a great work with Gerd Kanter's team. You are not so old. Why are you not taking a next project and maybe a team sport? Thank you.
First of all, Gert made me sick and tired, and I am really exhausted from him. And I can't imagine that in team there are sometimes 12 very ambitious and guys. I can't handle them. No, really. The main reason is that this process, 12 years together, and now we are on a daily basis in contact. It's so exhausting, and first of all, I don't know who I am in this project. I wrote that the first level team is, there is some person called life manager, or I don't know. Is it coach? So what I did really, I tried to organize other people's success. I don't see in any sports paper this kind of person I was really. So it was exhausting, it was happy time, it was extremely interesting, but I can't do it anymore. I'm tired, really. But I can give some advice sometimes if somebody wanted.
Thank you. More questions?
Minister.
First of all, thank you very much, Raul, for a wonderful presentation. But I was kind of noticing you saying in the beginning of your presentation that years ago you were so stupid to believe that that you can have fair play, you can make sport without doping. Have you changed your mind?
These 6 years when I was out of sports, I was in Olympic Games as the TV guy from European Broadcasting Union, but changed absolutely everything. So I have to say that this is the main principle. And I don't want to hear these idiotic stories, what I believed, and a lot of people believe so far, that there is no way to be Olympic champion without doping. It's stupid, it's idiotic, it's bad training. I still hear, and I have a lot of contacts in this field, when the really normal people, coaches, say that without doping it's impossible to throw over 65 meters in discus, and there are a lot of mythology around the sports, and doping is one of them. So I think one of the main objectives in sports and the coaches is to restore this clear sports fair play image, 100%. There can't be no exceptions. It's possible. Sports is, I have to say, not very developed field, as I said, activities. There are a lot of resources, honest resources, everywhere. Especially science, especially, as I said, sports philosophy is not very much developed. We don't know yet what it is, really. Lifestyle. There are nutrition, everything. So, message is clear. Doping must be in the past, like smoking the kids. It's over this time to think this way. I'm happy I got rid of this 20 years ago, and I can assure you Gerd Kanter is 100% clean Olympic champion, and I'm very proud of it. Now, you know, there must be one very simple principle. It's not concept. This must be religion. And this is more powerful than concept. Fair play must be religion in sports. That's it.
So, questions? More? I have. Raul, as your media expert and topic of this conference, the role of the coach in society. How do you say, what is the role of the media about the coaches? Because in some ways, when the teams are losing the games, 2, 3, 4 in a row, then the media starts to shout out, you have to fire the coach. The coach is the reason. This is not so much in Estonia, but when we take the papers in England, for example, those journalists are saying out loud that you have to fire the coach and everything goes in the better way. Your opinion?
The media is not anymore what it was 10 or 15 years ago. And the importance of media like it was is actually going down. And it's not because of social media. It's because of media itself. Social media is just one technical tool like others. So the main thing what coaches, sports, organizations have to do, they have to do their own story, not to count on media, to be active themselves, to learn modern principles of communications. And it's in a very low level, really, I have to say, especially in sports organization. Maybe in a top it's much better, but in a normal level it's quite low. So if you allow media to make your story, then you are guilty yourself. So it's not enough anymore to be just strong in sports or culture or whatever. You have to make your own story. It's my message to sports organizations. And it's possible.
Thank you. I see.
Thank you very much.
No more questions. Thank you, Raul. It's time for the final conclusion of this conference. It has been great 2 days, almost 2 days. And for the final conclusion, I would like to ask to the stage the Tarvi Pürn, Minister of Culture, Under Secretary of Sports.
Dear guests, colleagues and friends, it has been really most interesting 2 days here in Tallinn during this conference. When we started to prepare Estonia's presidency and discuss the priorities with our sport organizations, we found out quite quickly that the role of coaching society is the topic we would like to highlight during the next 6 months. And one of the goals of this conference was to get as much as possible the feedback and input which we can use during the presidency time. This has been succeeded. Attendance of the conference and representation of around 30 different countries and so many different sport organizations shows clearly how important and actual this topic is. A comprehensive summary of the conference will be composed, and also the sessions of the conference will be viewable in Presidency YouTube channel. So please all welcome to enjoy them once again. As it was underlined, sport is a new sphere of life and international cultural phenomena, which is understood the same way in any point of the world. Sport has become an important economic sector, employing many people and providing products and services more than ever. Society is becoming more and more aware of benefits of sport related to working ability, well-being, education, health, social inclusion, and so on. Today, sport and physical activity are seen as important elements of healthy lifestyle. As it was pointed out, 30 years ago, the recommendation with a heart failure was to lie down. And today, it is recommended to be physically active. The paradigm has changed. And coaches are the key people in the field of sport who have the central role of supervising sport to participants of all ages, at all levels, regardless of their background and based on their objectives and abilities. There are around 9 billion coaches guiding more than 100 million of people in Europe, and the sector is growing. Coaches are working with high-level athletes, but also in the context of sport for all, sustaining the quality of life through health-enhancing physical activities. As a consequence, coaching should be acknowledged as socially highly valued work. Besides the role in society of coaches in general, many important sub-topics were covered during the conference, like coaches' education, qualification, competencies, future skills of coaches, women and coaching, performance-oriented coaching, and we had interesting panel sessions. As organizers, we are very pleased and grateful to all who contributed. The role of coaches is one of the key topics of the newly adopted EU working plan for the sport for the years 2017-2020. This is a priority topic for Estonian presidency, and we are going to explore the topic further together with 28 EU member states. During the upcoming 5 months, within the Sport Working Party meetings, the aim is to form most important common viewpoints in the document of Council conclusions for adoption by the EU sport ministers. I would like to thank you, European Commission and the Council Secretariat, for great support and cooperation during the preparation of the presidency events. Also, I'm very grateful to all speakers and moderators of the conference. I would like to thank all the partners who were involved with organizational issues, and of course, our great presidency team. You have done an excellent job. Thank you all for coming, and you are most welcome back. Our next presidency conference is taking place in Tartu on 21st and 22nd September. And the topic will be promoting sport, physical activity, and athletes' dual career in and with universities. It will be happen just before the opening of the European Week of Sport on the 23rd of September in Tartu. Please all be welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Tarvi. This means the conference is about to end. Like Tarvi said, we are all welcome you back in Estonia, and who is going to stay maybe a bit longer for the weekend here in Tallinn. Please explore our beautiful city and our beautiful country. What we have to say to all the participants that the organizers of this conference will send out the email after the conference, which includes the link to the galleries. You saw the photographers taking pictures here. And also the link to the presentations where you can download the presentations, because we had so many questions. Can we have the presentations? And also the speakers who doesn't want to share their presentations, please let the organizers know. I'm sure everybody will feel free to share their experiences and also their presentations. From my side, I think it was also very interesting and educational 2 days with you. I feel after this can be a better coach for my children, as a father coach. And now I would like to invite you all to the lunch, which is served on downstairs, like yesterday. So thank you for coming, and hope you had a pleasant 2 days. Thank you.